Good. Well, happy Saturday, I should say, first of all. Depending on where you are, it could be morning, it could be afternoon, wherever you are. Happy Saturday. And welcome to Talk Sports, our weekend program, Saturday Sports Special, where we speak with the movers and shakers of sports. The sportsmen, sportswomen, coaches, administrators, just about everyone who are involved in sports directly or indirectly. On this weekend's program, as indicated, we'll be reviewing the just concluded Republic Bank Intersecondary Schools Athletic Championships in Grenada. Boy, telling you, that was excitement. That was agony, I should say, first of all, then the excitement. Okay. So we'll be chatting with a couple folks, and in between, a 2 hour special. My usual co-host, Rudy and Sullivan, is standing by in Toronto. We hope to speak to Mr. John L. Mitchell, who was the technical director for the championships. Get an overall view from him in terms of how everything went. Maybe a bit remotely from it's Saturday, and I assume people have other things to do. So we'll accommodate just about anyone and everyone who wants to make a comment. Good afternoon to you, Edwin Sam. Nice knowing that you're in the house very early indeed. I know you enjoy the excitement. So too is Theo Duncan. I know you were in the stadium, and I know you enjoy the excitement as well. But first of all, let me see if I can get some comments from my co-host, Mr. Rudian Silvan. Rudian, pleasant afternoon to you. And first of all, what were your impressions of the Interpol Championships for 2023? Bear in mind is that it probably was the first time since 2018 we have a full-blown championships. Last year was, just getting things back on their feet, seeing how things going. And despite the many challenges, etc., there were so many things we can talk about. But overall, your impression of the championships.
Yeah, pleasant good afternoon to you, sir, and the listeners on, um, who is constantly being a blessing to us by showing up Saturday after Saturday and being a part of this program. It was an excitement week. It was very excited. Like I said, there's a lot to talk about. There will be the plus and the negative. Some people may have, and we could discuss that as we go. But it was an excitement scene since we had Intercall for many years, um, full blown to that extent. And it was people on the toes. I have to say I was on mine, and it was very excited. So throughout the day, the 2 hours, we're gonna talk a lot more what's positive and negative. But for now, it was truly good to see us back again, and see that it was well put together. Well put together. I was pleased.
Okay. Right. Thanks very much. Let me see if I can get John L. Mitchell. John L. Well, good afternoon to you, and I know you're in and about doing other things post intercall. If you're hearing me, if you can give me your reactions, your comments regarding intercall 23 from your end, John L.
Um, Good afternoon, Michael. Good afternoon, Rudy, and the listeners and viewers out there. Good afternoon. First of all, Michael, I just want to say thank you to the general public and those of you in the diaspora for supporting Intercall 2023. From where I sit, I can see and all the feedback that we've gotten so far, we can claim that Intercall 2023 was a huge success, bouncing back for the very first 3 day event since 2018 and coming back. I must say we were able to put on a product as promised that was of quality, and that didn't just happen like that. We need to put in the context the contributions of the officials and every person or set of persons involved, talking from the broadcast, the officiating, even presentation. It's a number of pieces that were put together to ensure that we had such a good Intercall 2023. I believe And up to today, I've been getting the feedback, and for the most part, we've been having some great positive feedback. And when we talk positive feedback, it is not only about the quality of production, the way the events flowed, and all of that, but also the level of competition coming out from our athletes over the 3 days. You would want to agree with me that over the 3 days, the interest and the level of competition and rivalry among the schools, it was top notch, culminating with that 4x4 event on day number 3. So all in all, I believe that we've had a good intercall. Yes, from where I sit from a management perspective, there are a number of things that we know we have to tighten on. We've started speaking about them. We've, a matter of fact, we've started putting things in place to ensure that the product next year is improved. The quality going out is improved from initial conversation with the bank and all of that. Republic, that's the first full 3 day. They themselves have agreed with us that look, Intercourse 2023 has been a success, and they themselves have already put in things in place to help to see how they can help build what we will be doing next year, 2024.
Yeah, well, and then listening to the sponsors who basically were because they acquired Scotiabank. Remember, Scotiabank was the initial sponsors, so they kind of getting their feet, sort of wet into the
Very
whole
much so.
system of this. Scotiabank has been with Intercall for moons, for quite a while. So it's a new
Yeah.
beginning for Republic Bank at that level, I should say, because they were involved in school sports in terms of football and things, but not that level, in terms of coordination, in terms of organizing. So I want to give them a pass for now, and I want to support the engagement with them going forward because they would have seen what it is now and what it takes and how we can bring it to the next level. Another thing I want to commend you on, well, you did that basically, is commending the officials. Many times there are people who will just go on social media and just say all sort of things, not knowing that we have so many people who are in the background putting the pieces together and showing that things are in place. And I'm glad you mentioned the officials because if you have to, Jonathan, if you have to really mention the people who put all these things together, we'll have to probably two programs. As I said, just calling the names, calling what they have, what they have done, what they have, these sort of things. It will take quite a while. So I'm glad you mentioned overall the officials, and there's the other thing in terms of um, the committee starting, right off the bat and fresh in the minds, start looking at things that they can look at going forward. We are hoping that through this program and subsequent programs, we can get feedback from the public on various issues because you folks who are already in it, it's always nice to have a perspective from the outside, whether it's criticism, whether it's praise, whatever, so that you can, put those things. If there was a fourth day, I would have been there. I wanted more of the fun and excitement. Yeah, I know. Theo is saying that because I was teasing folks on Friday. I was saying where's the fourth day of Intercall? I mean, the thing was so exciting that you wanted more, things like that. But John L, in going forward, I know you mentioned start talking about things, whatever it is like that. So what are some of the critical areas or priority areas you believe from a technical point of view that you'll be looking at?
One of the things definitely we'll be looking at, we will be implementing standards. I'm going to tell you that, especially in our field events, because what we've seen compared to over the years, we have seen a greater increase in the number of athletes participating in our field events. So that's one of the areas we definitely will be improving on. Added to that, when we look at our 800s, the 1500s, and we also saw the number of participants, we realize now going forward, we need to start having heats. So that means affecting our schedule of events and how we schedule our events again because of the great numbers we've had. Because for the 800 and the 1500, we are time finals. So from a technical standpoint, yes, these are some things we'll be looking at. Even some of the field events, how we've structured them, we're going to be really looking at that. So I'm talking about more the technical aspect of it. So these are some of the things that we definitely will be looking at, because the more and more we improve on we asking the diaspora and the people out there to support us, we need to find more and more means to ensure that what we put out there demonstrates a high level of track and field. And this is going to only help us to improve on what we do. Hopefully, moving we'll, as next year, we'll be introducing the full flights of hurdles. So the 100 hurdles, the 110 hurdles, the 400-meter hurdles, all of that will be coming on board. So moving into that, what we'll be doing, we'll be carrying out some workshops prior to the introduction. So just after that short break right now, we will be engaging the key stakeholders to start doing some workshops and some training sessions so that all of our coaches will be equipped. Another thing that we'll be doing is engaging our coaches so that they will be really knowledgeable, a bit more knowledgeable with the rules that govern the sport and how they can best utilize the athletes in different forms, how they can best ensure that they are aware as to their rights, as to what they can and cannot do. So it's a number of things that we've seen in the background. You would not see that from where you sit. What we've seen in the background as to what we need to be working on to ensure that we have something better going out there in the long run.
Okay, Rudian, before you comment, what about the? I mean, quite a bit impressive, but will that be able to fit into the 3 days, or are you looking at a fourth day?
That's a conversation, because that has started playing in our minds already. If we're going to be doing all of that, do we increase the day, the number of days, or do we increase the length of the day? So instead of finishing by 5:36, do we now finish at 8? So all these are the conversations we will be having, Michael. So we've started, as I said, initial conversations have begun. We have not really sat down, but early next week is where we're going to sit down as a committee and do a post-mortem. We'll be sitting likewise with our chief officials, our referees, and our chiefs in the different areas again, from their perspective, things that they've seen, engaging the coaches. So all of the stakeholders, all of the key players will be engaged to see how we can improve on what we're doing.
And do you think that based on that, based on what you're seeing too, that if you have to make recommendations that in terms of resources, whether it's government, sponsors, other stakeholders to get involved, that this is where, whether it's at the primary school level or the secondary school level, this is where the investment should be?
Definitely. And one of the things I've always said, there's already a cadre of athletes or personnel that we have. We don't have to go far to get them. The primary school's already there. There's already a structure. The secondary school's already there. There's a structure. All we need to do is to invest in those structures and help build it. So coming from the primary school, or they are already engaged in a number of key fundamentals that will prepare them for track and field. So if it means building and boosting our PE programs, we need to enhance that, because this is what's going to transcend into what eventually happens on the track eventually. So we need to support our schools. So if it means more coaches, or as I said, more training programs, whatsoever it takes, we need to be having that conversation going forward, because you would appreciate, Michael, that to get what you got in Intercall, the train started moving a whole year before. And as I said on our last program, there are a number of things, especially one of the things I want to see improve is nutrition of athletes. Because the athletes go out there, they work hard with the coaches, but when they go home, when they leave the coaches, what happens? How do they rebuild? How do they enhance the repairing of cells and all of that? So these are the things that we need to be looking at. And that's where the extra resources can really come in, providing of implements to some of the schools, because not all of the schools have the level, the quality of implements that they have for some of the training in the field events and all of those areas. So these are some of the areas we need to be looking at, and discussion needs to be held so that at least we can move forward in a positive way.
Okay. Rudian?
Yes, Jenna, that was a lot. And I commend you and I congratulate you on a success. It may not be 100% how you want it, but it was satisfying for the time length and the the equipment that you guys use that you never used before. So I commend you on that. A few questions. I'm hopefully we'll get those in fast. Hurdles. You say 110 hurdles and 400 hurdles. Now, are you only going on the senior level only?
We intend to go at all levels. All right, engage even not the under 17s and the under 20s. All right, even the sub junior. So we're going to be having the hurdles at all the different age categories. Come next. As I said, the full flight of hurdles. We are coming in full force with the hurdles. We're talking from our sub juniors or juniors or seniors. We're going full force with our hurdles.
Okay, so you're doing full 110 for every category.
110,
Okay,
100,
and 400.
200.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, for
the
everything.
females of course
Yeah,
do
the females
100
go
and the
on
males
100. Yeah.
110. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, and the other question is, say you now you notice that you need to have standards for the field events. Um,
Yes.
is the field events only going to be because now you have to be tracking it? So you need to have somebody who's tracking the data on that. And two, is it only going to be based on competing at the national stadium or competing in every area? Because this is the only place that had a have an actual track. And if
Yes.
not, then you're going to have specific people tracking those data to make sure everything is correct and it's the distance and stuff is on point.
And and again, these are the discussions that we've held. All right, we've had all of these preliminary discussions among ourselves. Um, but as I said now, the one place I think it would have to happen with the standards would have to be at the stadium. Most likely, it would be during the meet. So these standards would have to be met during the meet. If you don't get the standard, you don't measure or be it whether or not if it's going to be a qualification round or so. As I said, it's still in train. The conversation is still being held, but we definitely will be having standards moving forward. Definitely.
And just before you go, the awards. I know it's probably going off a little bit. In the awards, do you break down the awards or you just do one overall champion?
We break down. We have category awards. We have sub junior champ, senior champ, Victor Lodoram, Victor Lodoram. We even have divisional champs. So the school that was overall in sub junior, junior, senior.
Yeah.
So we have awards throughout the categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to see the awards. I only get to see,
Uh,
and especially with I only get to see the overall. So I didn't get to see the breakdown of which school that might win the sub junior, the junior. I didn't get to see that part. So
yes.
that's why I was just
So
asking that question. Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of that was given. We gave awards all these categories.
Okay.
Good.
Michael, I just have about 5 more minutes with you.
Yeah, yeah.
So
From a
let's see if we can get in.
from
Yes.
performance point of view, Jonel, tell me what and your overall take on terms of performance at Intercore 2023.
Performance point of view, we've seen some increase in times among many of the athletes. When we look at what's or for example, let me use character as probably one of our yardsticks. We've seen a number of these athletes performing very close to our character standards. As I've said before, our standards are way up there compared to a lot of the other countries in the Caribbean. And we saw a number of them because even in the 3000, we had a young man who I think the standard was 946 or something, 945, and he was able to run about a 946. So even in these areas, we saw that. So performance wise on the track, we saw quite a few sub 11 where we were not seeing them before. We had areas where our junior boys were struggling to become 11, and we had guys running in the 10. All right, even in our senior guys. So these are areas that we have seen some improvement in because our coaches continue to work. And I want to give kudos to our coaches who continue to invest tremendously in our athletes. And we want to continue encouraging them and giving them the support that they need. So performance wise, even on the in the field, we saw in the javelin male, we saw some improvement in the discus. We saw some improvement there, and we have some young and upcoming talent coming through. And mind you, it is not dominated, as I have said prior to this show, by one school or two schools, but you see a great spread of schools being engaged in the process.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Jonel. I know it was short, but I know you have quite a bit to say, and hopefully, as we indicated, we can discuss more about that in a subsequent program.
Yeah. Yes. So thank you again, Michael. Thank you again, Rudial, for being on for this short period. It's a pity I can't stay, but
Yeah.
It's been my pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay then. So folks, that you heard it there from John L. Mitchell, the technical director for the Inter-Secondary Schools Athletics Championship. Yeah, and let me get some comments there from Edwin. Is saying, in a word, the game's amazing. First, the coverage provided by TNR Communications was fantastic. The video was spectacular, and the audio was mostly on par. I found that the announcers were a bit biased on day one, which improved significantly over days two and three. And he went on to say that from a performance standpoint, the product delivered was a huge success. Theo is saying, wonderful job, Mr. Mitchell, referring to John L. Gordon is chiming in now. He's saying, good evening, I assume where he is. And Michael Sherman, good afternoon, the host, co-host, and guests. And one area I will suggest is having the release on all the same day, maybe having the 4x1 on a different day than the 4x4, since many athletes participate in both events. There was sort of, I think, was a little experiment, you know, in terms of some events on the first day, then the second day, and the third day. If there was a fourth day, yes, she's saying that I would be there. I wanted more of the fun and excitement. Jonel, you did a marvelous job as always. That's for Neil Wells. Paula, good afternoon to you, Paula. And also, would you consider having semifinals and finals for the 4x4? So there were some questions. Well, and then again, it goes to whether or not, Rudian, there's a need for a fourth day, you know.
No, and I agree with the heats in the 4x4 semifinals and then finals. And all of this stuff, most of this stuff like 4x1s, heats, if there is like semifinals, if I may use that word, semifinals could be on the first day, the end of the day of the first day. And then you trickle down towards the next days, right? But all of that stuff could happen because most of your hits, like you said. And again, it's challenging because you have a 400 on the first day, and then you may have the finals on the first day as well for 400, and then have a 4x4 later on. So that also, taken away from someone who's running, they might end up running two or three 4x4 and 400s in that day, right? But they should have, the field was big, and having eight on the lane would have been much better than having a full pack like that. So.
Right. So there's another one. That guy, Steve, the Rasta man, you all need to commend him for his good work. He always helps those athletes after the race, even if he has to carry them off to the medical personnel to get attention. Hats off to him. I think, I'm not sure if it's Steve, probably Keith. I wonder if it's Keith she's referring to. Theo, is it the guy at the finish line? I think it's Keith you might be referring to. Says Rasta, I know it's long here. Lincoln Deputy, these long distance shouldn't be on the last day. Some of the long distance runners are also important parts of their school's really team to often decide with it. Yeah. Usually the long distances used to be on the first event. And even if it means the first event of the second session of the afternoon session, giving them enough time to rest. But I noticed there was a long distance race just before a relay. The boys, I think it was 3 or 5,000, whatever it is. And I remember the commentators were even saying, hey, there was a guy from SAS, for example, who just competed in that grueling event, which was either the 3 or the 5. I can't remember which one, in fact. And then he was in the relay event. The relay was basically 10 or 15 minutes later. It could have been shorter than that, And I think that may be something that maybe they have to consider. And again, as you said, that they're looking at lots of, moving parts.
Michael, and it's so right when they say that. One of the things I do year after year when we have in our championship, they tend to send me the schedule of last year and see if any kids is doing a double and try to rearrange the schedule to fit that person, especially if they have the opportunities to medal. So maybe that's something else they could look into, right? These athletes that doing both. It might be, 15 minutes or 10 minutes recovery after doing a long distance. It's not easy.
Yeah. Right. And Theo, going back to it's Keith. Yes, she did correct herself. Keith Williams is the person she was referring to. Yeah, Keith has been doing a marvelous job on the finish line. Um, Keith basically has replaced Capitan. Well, Capitan was a starter, but yeah, that's Fitzroy Checkley, the late Fitzroy Checkley. Greetings. I thoroughly enjoyed Intercall this year. However, seeing you are speaking of schedule and event, may I mention that there was a concern regarding the free throws for the junior boys. There were 3 days of Intercall and three throws were all on one
Same day.
day, scheduled back to back. Usually, it's the same athletes doing all 3 throws. I shared this the week before Intercall with various coaches, and they confessed they all missed it. So it was not brought up at the technical meeting. Wow. So at the technical meeting, even if it is, Simone, I think most times the technical meeting maybe just maybe a day or two before, So sometimes it may be a bit too late, I would say,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, some need to
Especially
make sure.
if you have a program, once the program print and gone, it's nothing you can do again to change the
Well,
schedule.
yeah, that's true. That's one thing, but most times when they have the technical meeting is just to go over some of the areas that they need to deal with,
Yeah,
probably athletes who have been injured, scratches, etc., etc., but not in terms of changing up the schedule. Most
the
times that
schedule. Yeah,
schedule is, yeah,
it's locked in.
done already. Yeah, so that may be something that they look at come for 2024. Congrats to all those athletes for coming out and giving us 3 days of exciting track and field. Yeah. We have to congratulate the athletes as well. We have to congratulate the spectators as well because from all reports, despite big crowds, you will always have little incidents, right? But generally, it has been an incident-free, you know, championships. Um, Michael Sherman is saying, my take always for future integral games are twofold, namely the introduction to an athlete's village and a quality standard for the field events, which John L. has alluded to in terms of the standards, starting with the field events. Good day. I'm so happy that the games are back in its entirety. Congrats to the organizers. Well, congratulations to the teachers as well. Um, they have an integral part to play in that. Um, at this year's games, I have seen 20 plus competitors in a field event, which to an extent is good, but in terms of the quality, as Michael and um, is saying here, as well as John L, in terms of the standard, the quality of the competition may be reduced. But it's good to see that we have so many young athletes, in competition. But again, in terms of the quality, that may be the concern.
And that can
Um,
be that could be a backfire in years to come. You have many kids leaving school, and we always talk about when they graduate, they don't come back, but when they graduate, they're truly gone and they don't get a chance to compete. And the quality of the athletes coming behind them may not be, as good as the one that left. So you have a standard now. As much as the standard is good, we got to really think about it because now we're taking away from a school bringing an athlete because an athlete don't have a standard. And that could, so yeah, they have to look at it from both ways. The standard is very good. It's always good to have a standard, but maybe a standard that is reachable for most athletes. And then that way you take your best out of that, top 24, and then go from there.
right. And he says also an athlete village can benefit the overall performance of the athlete, that is recovery and rest time and managing injuries. I was thinking that the tents, I may be wrong, but I know normally we have the tents on the back of the stadium that will be quote unquote ad hoc, athletes village. Stadium making money on schools coming to have 1 or 2 hours training session, let them have two. We don't want to go into these sort of things, but probably a point in terms of the stakeholders being involved. Okay, because I believe that to some extent, and when you say stadium, you refer to the government because the government owns the stadium. Rudian, if you paid for pay per view, can you see everything you missed on demand next week? Yes.
Yes.
Based on what
Yes.
was played by the production, by the rights holder, that once you have
You can go
paid
back.
for pay
Yeah.
per view, you can go back. It should be up within the next few days. I wouldn't be surprised if day one is up already, but I know that you should. So don't forget your password. You know, um, you should be able to go back
Go
and
back.
relive
Yeah.
the yeah. Most times these things will be on VOD, that's video on demand, for a while. I don't know the duration, but probably Richie Oliver might be able to tell us for how long they may be available. But I because I noticed even on the pay per view, you would have seen too that for those who were there were other events that had been completed, and it's also up. You know,
Uh,
yeah, not we're not related to intercall. You know, pay per view. Um, the outer parishes are always at a disadvantage since they commute to the village, take them beyond 10 p.m. and have them to compete next day. Um,
mhm.
nice point, Shaman, but um, something I've been, you know, looking at, examining, you know, over the period of time in that I recall, I think when the championships were held in St. Andrew, I think it was during the time of the construction of the stadium, reconstruction of the stadium. If I'm not mistaken, I think either was the GBSS or one of those schools that actually camped out in in St. Andrew, somewhere in the big parish, if I'm not mistaken. You know, and I mean, I'm looking at boys and girls camps now, you know, and I recall when the last time I attended boys and girls camp, the schools that were competing in boys and girls camp, as you know, they come into Kingston and they basically stayed there for the entire week. You know, I know. Listen, these things have cost. There is a cost factor. You know, when you look at Karaku, for example, I mean, not just the outer parishes. Karaku is an example. You know,
Mhm.
whatever you do, Karaku will have to be accommodated. Their athletes will have to be accommodated to participate, and it means therefore they'll have to be at least a day or two before, right? And you have to give consideration is that these athletes are not riding in a bus, you know, that the bus can stop, blah blah blah. They are coming in a boat, you know, and there'll be those with seasickness, blah blah. You have to give them time to recover, and you know all these sort of things. So when you look at that, for example, the championship start on the Tuesday. At least by the Saturday or the Sunday, the kids should be on the mainland, you know, because therefore it means that they only have Monday, you know, as a recovery. So by average, you know, Saturday, Sunday, it may be earlier, for example, you know, you never know. But good point,
However,
good
Michael,
observation.
this person make a very good observation because I'm speaking from first hand, where there's an issue with the primary school sports on day two. They started without St. Patrick's and St. Mark's, and those athletes didn't get home till 10 o'clock at night, and then they had
Yeah,
to
yeah, well,
sleep and get up. So I'm speaking from one of
yeah.
the coaches from the St. Patrick's school who told
Well,
me they actually started a match pass without St.
well,
Patrick's and without St. Mark's
well,
because they were, yeah,
and it goes back to the point where John was talking about looking at everything. Because
yeah.
if we're looking at, as he says, if we're looking at improving the quality, introducing more events, whether you go to 4 days or whether you expand, you know, the time, go till 8 o'clock, then there you have another problem again. Because
Yeah,
if you're going to 5 and 6 now, and the athletes are getting
still
home
getting
at
home
late,
that late.
can you
Yeah,
imagine if you're going to 8? Then
yeah,
so a lot of thought have to go into what do
yeah,
you do, what will be the final. And for
yeah.
me, I think it should be a situation where they should get the excuse the input from the other stakeholders, meaning, and by the way, and when I say other stakeholders, many times I think we shortchange our athletes and others by just going to the principals. Listen, there are some principals, Rudy, and for those who are listening, who don't have a clue about what is taking place
What is
regarding
taking place?
sports,
Yeah.
not just track and field, sports. They're
Hmm.
just in it. They're just in it. Okay? And sometimes they make decisions that are not in the best interest. They don't even consult
Yeah.
with their, with the whether it's the games teachers, physical education, coaches, etc. And if only they can coordinate with their coaches, something like that, for example, there should be no reason why that the principal, who is probably the focal point, the point of contact for the various schools, because you have a principal association, should be in dialogue with the coaches of the school, particular school. So I'm using an example. Let's say McDonald College, the principal of McDonald College, and in this case, Mr. Carl Andal, which, I mean, I'm just using an example because I
Yeah.
know Carl is very knowledgeable, etc.
Yeah.
He knows, right? Yeah. There's no reason why Carl should not be in touch or conversing with the coach or coaches of his school to get their feedback. What do you think? What do you think we should, what is the
Should
suggestion?
do. Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
it means coordinating with other principals, especially where you believe we are at a disadvantage. Hey, SAS, Montrose, etc. Here is what we're proposing for our schools, okay? And this is what we want to bring to the table, etc., etc. It is in the best interest of our athletes, you know. Leaving it up to just one principal or just a few who probably may not be sharing that concern, may not be
Yeah.
understanding it. I think so. So it calls for quite a lot of thinking, and the interesting thing, Rudian, is that they have started the discussion, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and they have started it very early. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that it should not be just, yeah, we fresh, blah blah blah. We talk about it now, and then come next probably February we start to talk again. It should be continuous, and you
Yeah.
should have time. You should have timelines. You should be saying probably before the end of the summer. Here is what we have decided on. Continue to engage the principals, the coaches, etc., the technical people, the athletic association, for example, you know, Ministry of Sports, Education, because there will be implications if you want to go to the fourth day.
Yeah.
There will be implications if you want to go to 8 o'clock. How do you
How
cater
do you?
for, yes, for the athletes, you know,
Yeah.
outside of the perimeter
Or the
of
perimeter. Yeah.
of the stadium. These are the
And,
things that
and
should
and
be
again,
thought
a lot
about.
of, like I said, it's a lot that you talk about because I mean, then you have to look at where is the issue, what
Mhm.
creating the distance because in the high school championship up here, we got the three categories. They call them novice now, which is the grade nines. They call them novice now. So we have the three categories, but in each event there's 24 kids. Then that's how it is across the board. For every event, in every category, there's 24. So, but those kids, again, they have to qualify to get there, right? And at one school only allowed to have two, that can qualify to be in an event. They can't have more than two, right? So, if you go to that, no, but I think it just based on the events you have in, how many people you have in, how many students you have in those event, and how do you break it down? How do you now do you go, and that's come back again with standard? Do you only put in X amount? You doing three heats, three semifinals for every category, and then you pick top one, next two fastest kind of thing, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So right. So that's a nice, and guys and girls, sorry. That's what we're talking about. We're looking at the highs and lows. We're looking at suggestions, recommendations. Nice, Shoma. If folks have any other, um, please free to just drop it on, and we'll probably make mention of it. Um, Marion Donaldson, let's place some more emphasis on the field events. They played a major role in determining the winners of the game. I mean, come on. um, Sometimes we do forget, and sometimes, and we do forget because everyone is focused on the track. All the excitement is on the track,
On the track.
and then you see these schools inching up in terms of the points because you forget that, hey, look, they have the shot put is ongoing. You have the javelin, you have the long jump and the triple jump that people may not even be showing an interest in, right? And their points are adding up. So sometimes, yeah, good point, Marion. a little more emphasis. And I think to an extent we had to give a little credit to the broadcast because they gave some coverage, even though I believe there should be more coverage of the field events because in some meets, what you do, you schedule it in such a way that when there's the lull on the track, the focus is on the field, right? So probably for the next 10, 15 minutes, it's just field events back to back, you know. But then again, it's how you have to work with the broadcaster and things like that. So because during the intermission, your commentators have to get refreshed, your cameramen also the things have to get refreshed. So sometimes they just have a shot, on the stadium itself, and they just have it there so the cameraman can get a 10 minutes, half an hour break because remember they're in the sun for the whole time. They behind the lens, and they are just trying to capture the moment for you, right? And then
But
there's the
this
production
is
team that's
everywhere.
doing a lot.
This is certainly everywhere because even out here, the field always don't get enough coverage. In any major sports, the field events don't get major coverage. So it's something that is across the board. It's not only in Grenada, but it's across the board. Where the field events don't get major, coverage. So that's something they got to work on.
Yep. So yeah, so that's something that they really need to look at, and I believe that it's something that for some reason they should be able to um, rectify, you know, rectify. But I think by and large, Marian, they are making some progress in terms of that. Um, the other, if folks, if let me, all right, if I see Facebook user, I know you did not do what you're supposed to do. Okay, so I would like to, but I prefer to have a name, whatever. It means that when you went on, you did not put your name. Okay, I would like to, but just for the quality, Um, it says Michael is saying the sites can be the secondary schools in close proximity to the stadium. Yeah, like for example the the Wester Hall. You know, why not have probably SAS camping in GBSS? Use part of the GBSS the camp. Rudian?
Well,
Sorry,
yes.
I think you catch the irony of that. I don't think you catch the irony
but
of that.
but it also goes, Michael. Everything goes by schedule. And for example, if a team coming from the north, let's use McGraw College, if those who have to compete earlier will be the ones leaving earlier. It doesn't have to be the full team at the same time.
Mm.
So there's ways it could also be breaking down. Those who's competing within that earlier before midday kind of thing should be first going down, and then the rest could follow after, right? Because they're not competing right away. So it's not like everybody could be supposed to be going down at the same time. So
No,
things can
no,
be breaking down in that area, right?
yeah, but you want to have the synergy. I think the point is being made that the camp is important, right? And yeah, let me give you why I think the camp is important for those athletes, and it's something that they can consider. I don't think it's more on the organizers' part, but it's something that the schools can arrange with the organizers, okay? And as Michael said, probably a school. I mean, why not St. Joseph Convent in Andrews, for example, can inquire, make their own arrangements, whatever, in terms of that. Listen, it may be easier or more economical for our athletes to camp, let's say, at the Boca Secondary School. Just an example I'm using because he suggests, things.
Yeah.
For the 5 days, when you look at, putting all the factors together, it may be economical. I'm just using that as an example. Have everyone together because you want a synergy. You don't want some here and some there. You understand? You want everyone together. Let me give you an example with the GBSS. And it's a tradition for the GBSS. I mean, I've left school you know, more than 3 decades ago. Well, yeah. And since I was in school, GBSS has been camping in the school. It is a tradition that the athletes for Intercall camp in the school. Um, some schools have adopted that, others haven't. Some started it, some stopped. Various, factors. But one of the things, for example, this year for the GBSS that I can tell you about because I've spoken to the coaches. In fact, I just happened to call a coach, not realizing that they were actually in camp. And then they told me they were in camp. And one of the things that they said, Rudian, was that, which they have discussed with the athletes and most likely their parents, is that at nights, all electronic devices, whether it's a phone, whether it's a tablet, iPad, will be surrendered and they were surrendered from the Sunday when they started their camp. And they told me, whether you're 12-year-old, or whether you are 18 or 19, they cooperated. Every single one of them cooperated, surrendered, because the idea was that they wanted them to rest. So at mornings, they will receive their phone, whatever it is they device. But at night, at a certain time, they have to surrender it. And things like that is important. And also, you've given them that feel for what to expect, whether it's at the Carifta Games Village, whether it's at other beats where they come together. There's some level of discipline, you know, among the athletes. I could just share that with you because I mean I don't think it's any secret. But these are the sort of things that they had for these athletes, that when they come, they have agreed and they have accepted that level of responsibility and they surrender the devices because giving kids their phones and whatever it is, at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, what's going on. They up and whatever it is like that. So I thought that was good. We have some other comments here. Let me just take one and then we'll go on to get some other views from others because we're trying to get everyone in within that 2 hour frame. Clev is saying congratulations to the athletes, coaches, and officials for making the annual Intercol Championships an event filled with excitement. Here, allow me to make an observation. Deliberately did not say a criticism. Powers that be, coaches, officials, please advise athletes when stepping on the podium to receive their medallions and being congratulated to remove their hands from their track suit pockets. My piece with good intentions. Hey, Clef, even if you didn't raise that, I had that as a comment because I noticed it from a particular
Mhm.
athlete. Listen, and this was so, I mean, let me say, it was distasteful. Now, this athlete, and I hope it's the same thing that Claire is referring to because I saw it, I took note of it mentally, and I said I have to speak about it. I'm glad you mentioned it there. This athlete was waiting for medal presentation, and I can say it's in my case, my observation was a female athlete. Her hands were in her pockets, right? Waiting from the time she was waiting for that medal presentation, hands in pockets. She walked up, her name was called, she walked to the podium, hands in pocket. She received her medal, one hand in pocket. Well, hands in pocket, I should say, not one. When they received the medal now and they were congratulating each other, they'll hold hands. She removed one hand, but the other hand stayed in her pocket. So for the whole time, she at least had her hand in her pocket. Walks away, hand in pocket. I mean, this thing was so distasteful. At no point in time, I mean, I noticed that the people, the chaperones who were there with the medal presentation, at one point I noticed one told a guy to remove his hoodie because he was about to move forward to receive his medal and he had his hoodie on. And I realized that she gestured to him to remove it. And these are the sort of things we have to get our athletes at this young age to start getting themselves acclimatized to. The deportment, you know. This is medal presentation. This is a proud moment, you know. Could you imagine, you at the medal podium, whether it's a bronze or silver, gold, whether it's at the World Championship, Olympics, whatever, and your hand in your pocket or you have a hoodie on and you're showing as if come on, man. This is a proud moment. And, parents looking on, friends looking on, you know, and these are things that we have to work on. And I mean, this is not for the organizers. These are for the schools. These are for the
Yeah.
parents. Yeah.
I
Let
was
me bring
about to.
on.
I was about to say that. I was about to say that it's about the school. So they're representing the school, right? It's a representation of the school. So I was about to say that. So totally, you're totally
Yeah.
right on that.
All right. Let me just welcome Jason Skeet. Jason was one of the commentators, broadcasters at the 2023 Republic Bank Intersecondary School Athletics Championship at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium, and I'm just trying to get some feedback from Jason overall. First of all, Jason, on the broadcast, I mean the central broadcast, while it wasn't the first because there was something similar some years ago, but in terms of the coordination at this time and how it went on, we should say it was a major success. But being part of it, Jason, um, your initial feedback on the broadcast aspect of it. Jason, you hearing it? Yeah,
I'm hearing you, but I'm hearing you very low. So I'm thinking it could be something with my device. So I'm just trying
yeah,
to
yeah. I think,
sort it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
think
just
it may
just throw
be.
me back. Just throw me in backstage for a little bit. Let me just sort that out quickly. It shouldn't take
Okay,
more
then.
than a minute.
All right. So Jason, we're backstage. Let me see if I can get on to while Jason does that. I think I may have. Is that Nick? Wow, guys. Mind me talking a lot. Um, let me see who I have here now. Yeah, just bear with me. Mm, that's a refreshing moment. Yeah, let me see. Jason, are you there now? All right. Okay, I think we may have lost them for a moment. I'm losing my voice as well. Bear with me. Yeah, I think we may have lost them for a moment, but let me see who we have here. Okay, okay. So Rudian is back. So too is Jason. Right. So Jason is on now. Jason, thank you very much. Nice seeing
Yeah.
you, Jason.
Right. I can hear you now. I can see you now.
Okay, then that's good. And I guess as much we can see each other. Speaking about the broadcast aspect of it, as I was indicating, it's not the
I'm
first
hearing
time.
myself echoing, so I'm not quite sure.
But are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you, but I'm just hearing
Okay,
you
yeah, that's fine. I'm hearing
in
you
double.
clear. So let's
All right,
talk about
good.
the broadcast, Jason. First of all, the broadcast. As indicated, it wasn't the first time we have a sort of combining of resources,
Yeah.
but it was the first of its kind of that nature. What you thought about the broadcast?
Um, I was satisfied. Um, does that mean that I believe we can't do better? No. I believe there's a whole lot more that can be done. But bearing in mind the limitations that we had, really and truly. But yeah, I mean, it was excellent. It was awesome. But there's always room for improvement. So knowing the type of person that I am, when somebody asks me if I am comfortable with it, I will always tell you there's always room for improvement because I have been labeled as someone who is a perfectionist, and sometimes it works against me, and many times it works for me. So,
but in terms of the feedback you have been receiving, Jason, um, what level of feedback you have received from the public? I mean, obviously, your friends will be telling you, "Great job, Jason! Great job, Jason!" But generally, what the feedback you have been receiving?
generally, the feedback that I got was all positive. And when I say, yes, there were one or two people who would have even had their qualms. But even with those forms, what we would have gotten, what I would have received was a general fantastic job well done. All of that. I would have received that generally, even in the midst of some folks may have their little issues here and there, minor stuff. But no one really majored in minor when it came to the broadcast. The general perspective was that it was well received, awesome, and they really hope that moving forward, the combined broadcast will continue.
Rudian, you can chime in as well, Rudian.
All right, Jason, great job. I believe there is so much that can be done, like you said. It was pleased for the result that we have with the resources that we have. I think moving forward, you guys will come together, put your minds together, and be better for next year. That the way you want it to be. As perfect as you want it to be that 100% as you want it to be. But all I said, it was great. Like I said, little hiccups, but it was great. And we just had to just fix what we didn't get done well. That's all it is. But otherwise, it was
Yeah.
well done, and you guys did very well. So, like I said, we sometimes you go back, you sit back, you look back at the at little flashbacks at the videos in the next few months, and you're going to say, no, we can fix this, and we can fix that, and that could be better. And especially when dealing with broadcasts, when people are paying to listen and to watch, you do want quality for them. And not only in the diaspora, but in Grenada, people who is at home who want to listen and who want to watch as well. So you do want quality. And overall, it was great. But I know to your point of view, it wasn't perfect, but it was great.
Yeah. Hats off to Richie Oliver and the team at TNR Communications. One person. I was on the ground, and I remember this clearly. I was on the ground doing some field events, covering some field events on Thursday morning, and I remember somebody asking one of the cameramen, because maybe she was looking at it on television or maybe from a pay-per-view link of some sort, and he asked the cameraman, is this a foreign company? Is a is an international company? Because they've never seen that kind of level to detail, that kind of attention to detail and thing before. So the cameraman replied and said, no, it's a local company, TNR Communications. And she said, hey, I thought it was some big international company. I had to stop that person right away and tell them, yeah, it's a big international company, but it's locally bred and baked. Because many times a lot of people feel because the company is bred and based in Grenada, you're not international, you're not, and that is so wrong. And I want us to get out of that, because I heard people even say, hey, when I hear this voice, I thought it was some big international radio announcer. I was doing the thing, may I realize it's Jason's kid. And well, for those of you who didn't know, I mean, Bascom, I don't boast about my resume. So I'm Grenadian bred, Caribbean born, Caribbean based, but with an international appeal. So once we start to, appreciate that and give credit where credit is due, because TNR Communications, Richie and the team, they've done a fantastic job. I will tell you, a lot of the events on the 3 days had to come back to the production room at the Intercall from the broadcast. the technical team with TNR to be decided, because some of the races that were really close, the replay from TNR Communications that was slowed down determined the winners. There was an instance where I think it was in the 4x1 senior, can't remember the exact race, where there was somebody jumped the gun and two athletes came out almost simultaneously from lane 1 and lane 6. And when looking at it with the naked eyes, even from the general replay, you couldn't tell. No, the folks at TNR Communications, they had to go back and slow this thing down to the millisecond, you know, to get the person who was really at fault. And it ended up being, I think, the athlete in lane 1. But it was so close that even figuring it out with the naked eye was an issue. So these are the little things that, had to come into play. So it was much more than a television broadcast. It was the entire production that aided in the overall issue of the games. The 4x100 meter senior boys, there was an issue on the handover when GBSS was handing over from second to third. And the athlete for GBSS probably had some physical difficulty, maybe a cramp or something, and he inadvertently bumped into his own teammate, Tagon Peterkin. And in bumping into his teammate, Tagon Peterkin, struggling to find his balance while he was taking off, ended up with the edge of his spikes on the line. Now, the team from SAS noticed something could have been close, protested, but it had to come back upstairs in the production room from the cameras that we had on the ground place to determine, if it did happen, was he at fault? And eventually GBSS was disqualified. But I'm just saying that these little things that a lot of people don't know happen. This is what you find in the Olympics and World Championships. And we were able to do all these things over the last 3 days of Intercall right here. So it was an international company, but bred and based in Grenada.
I'm glad you said that because, I got myself into a war of words with people regarding that because, and people don't understand the sort of resources, the time, the effort that go into providing that sort of production, that sort of service, and believe that everything should be free. Listen, I make no apologies, no regrets for repeating what I've posted, and I'll continue to say that. If you want to disagree with me, sure, but the time for freeness comes to an end. All that you said there, Jason, people don't know that there's a cost factor. And everybody, the sponsors and this, that, and what the people in the Intercall doing with the money, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we talked about the production, right? And don't you know that, and I'm just using the Olympics or the World Championships, for example, that the same NBC, blah, 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 and things like that. So the billions of dollars that they put in to get the rights for these sort of things, and why if they put so much, they make that sort of investment, why they spend so much money, etc. And the sort of resources that have to go into ensuring that you get for we, it's not so much our, coffee, because it's more for the North American market. Okay, but when I went to 2012 Olympic Games in London with Sportsmax, part of Sportsmax, and get into the understanding all the logistics involved in getting the games to the Caribbean, the studio in London, the studio back in Jamaica, then there was the CMC production, the one in Barbados, the satellite studio in Barbados, all these sort of things. And people don't understand that all that it takes and the resources and, the people in the background, and all these things. And everybody just believe everything should be free, And this person, it used to be free. And since Republic Bank come on the scene and blah, 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 and all these sort of things. Listen, as a matter of fact, even if it's $50 in the jamming, I'm in the jamming, Because here's the other thing: we have developed an attitude in Grenada when it comes to sports that everyone wants to be on the bandwagon and no one wants to support, you know, the bandwagon moving. They don't want to support, they want to go onto the bandwagon. So everybody hype up about intercall. Everybody believe it should be free. Everybody believe it should be how they want it to be. And then nobody, as a matter of fact, I am certain that nobody talking about it, well, except for we who talking about intercall. Talking about intercall again until probably 360 something days away. That's how it is. Their focus now is probably carnival or some kind of other thing, you know. I'm not saying that you have to be concentrating on intercall, but, you know, my thing is that they just get into the fray of things at the spur of the moment and making all the noise, you know, and believe that, um, that everything that they think about, that it should be, and believe that social media is it, and that because it's on social media, it has to be true, and they should do this and they should do that, you know. But Jason, I'm telling you, it's probably for the first time in a long time I really got into it. I mean, you might have monitored it. I really got into it because there were some people and I know them, and I've been monitoring some of them. And there was one in particular. That's why I put that comment there. You have no problem in going on social media and boasting about your tickets and thing and about your outfit for your big reggae show coming up and thing. VIP to be exact. Well, I just going based on what they said. I'm not sure if they were just bragging. But yet for you complain about $15, man. 15, no, no. 15. Come
You
on,
see,
man.
I tell you something about
Leave
Scrum.
leave sports alone, man. Come on.
Yeah, you see, I tell you something, and one of the things I mentioned, because I was on an interview on Power 95 when we were having a conversation speaking about the broadcast, and one of the things I mentioned, which I still believe and I hold dear to me, is, and I think we had this conversation from starting back in 2009 when we had the very first syndicated broadcast. You were part of that first syndicated broadcast that we had for Interpol, and if I were to go back, a lot of people don't know that the majority of the people who were involved in 2009 were still involved over the last 3 days of Intercall 2023, because at the time we were doing work with GBN, and when I spoke to the then manager, Ruel Edwards, I said to him, I said, hey, this is Intercall, we had to do it big, and he placed some confidence in me and he says, Keith, go ahead, let's see what we can do. And I picked up the phone. I remember I called Bascom. I said, Bascom, this is Intercall. We had to get it right.
So
We called
that was when
Royal
you had
Tiger.
Anil Robertson thing. Anil was
Anil
on
Roberts, yes,
Roberts from
yes. I
Trinidad,
picked
yeah.
up the phone. I called my friend Anil Roberts out of Trinidad. I say, Anil, a lot of people don't know that Anil is a professional sports therapist. He was the coach, the Olympic coach for George Bovell the third, so he understands athletics and all of that. So I picked up the phone and I called Anil, and we had to go to sponsors to get his ticket and to sort out accommodation for me. He didn't charge anything. He just wanted somewhere to stay, and he was coming. And we pooled resources from the same Richie Oliver, because at that time Richie had now started TNR
Mhm.
Communication, so he didn't have very much, but he gave us everything he had, including some of his personnel. Some of them are still working with him today, and they too were part of this. And we pulled everybody together, and we had a fantastic syndicated broadcast. And I think that was either 2009 or somewhere about. Now, fast forward 14 years later, here we are. And the same thing. So, and I tell people what we are doing now, what we should be focusing now on when it comes to the marketing and the proper broadcasting of the intercall games. We've got to remember that what we are doing is showing off our athletes to the rest of the world. That's one, because the world has come to know Grenada for much more than the 1983 failed revolution. The world now has come to know Grenada because of people like um, Arlene Francique, Josh Boateng, um, Kirani James, Lyndon Victor, you know, Anderson Peters. The world has come to know Grenada a lot now because of sports, not just back from 1983. And I tell people that one of the things that we have to remember is the fact that we want to give these athletes the best chance to be placed on the international scene, and we must market them properly, because when we market them properly, then the rest of the world will understand their value, because that will be the value we place on them. It has to start with the value we place on them. And how we place that value on them is by marketing them and branding them properly from our own home. We've got to show people that, hey, um, Tyreek Telemann is Grenadian and he good and he fast. You know, we have to show people that Ethan Sam is a danger and this guy is coming. We've got to show people that Delron John and what's her name?
Elijah.
Augustine and Elijah and Augustine and the Gidhari girl and the Alexander from St. David's. We've got to show people that these athletes that we're breeding here now are ours and we really love them. So if you want them, you've got to understand the value that we place on them. And the only how we can start by showing that value is how we portray them to the rest of the world. And that has to start with the broadcast. That has
Yeah,
to
but
start with the
yeah,
broadcast.
because I was explaining to some of the coaches that um, that the days for the international coaches, particularly for American universities, where they travel to our country to watch, these days are long gone because of,
Yeah.
as you indicated, the broadcast and these sort of things, even through social media, etc. That it's easy for them to, look at a meet, um, hear what the commentators are saying sometimes, hear what the athletes themselves are saying, which is a very important thing that we have to talk about, and things like that. So to make a determination whether they have an interest in the athlete sometimes, okay? And that could be it can also has a there could also be a follow up in terms of contacting the coach or contacting the parent, etc., but or the school, etc. But it is important that we invest in that sort of thing because apart from just the broadcast, there's the archiving. 10, 15 years from now, could you imagine we had that sort of broadcast probably and that sort of broadcast I'm saying 20 years ago, 25 years ago, where we could have go back and see the likes of the Kurani and the Rondell, the Aline Frantic, these sort of athletes, even Hazel and Regis Buckles in competition at Intercall, you know, and then look at their progress over the years from the well, even if we want to go back to primary schools, but Intercall to the Carifta Games to the CAC Pan Am Games, Commonwealth Games, World Athletics Championships, Olympic Games. You know, that's where the Americans and them beat us. In terms of the archiving and things like that. So, I mean, we don't have the resources, but I'm saying it's a good start. And what we are doing there is, I would say, is an investment in the future because it means that probably if we continue like that, 5 years from now, we can look back at the Elijah, we can look back at the Itham, the Tegan, Delron and others, and things like that. Because 5 years from now, they may be representing us on the world stage,
Yeah.
and things like that. So it's very important. In addition to that, I am saying that coaches should look at that sort of investment and see how they can promote their athletes out there. Promote their athletes out there. I heard, for example, the sad story, and nothing against the TM Marshall Public College, of at least three athletes. I mean, Jason and Rudy, and three athletes that were of very good potential, have very good potential, and went on to the TM Marshall Community College from last year. And that was the end of the track and field
Yeah.
sojourn.
And
You
yeah,
know,
and I tell you something, Bascom. This here is one of the points that I raised on an interview that I had. I think it was either yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. And to aid in one of the comments that were made, I think Clebroy Depredine has been making that point consistently. Um, Now, this is the story. The story is this: 90% of the athletes that we've had that would have had all that talent and potential in the history of Grenada, whether we want to admit it or not, more than 90% of the athletes that we've had came from struggling homes. I mean, they came from struggling homes where you live every day by just having to figure out what next for tomorrow. Yeah. And so a lot of these athletes want to run their way to success. And when they're not given the opportunity to run their way into success, they run themselves into depression. Understand the point I'm going and make here now. Because mommy doesn't have the money, but mommy makes the sacrifice to get you the proper pair of spikes, make sure you eat as best as you can, make sure you train, and make sure you balance all that with your schoolwork, because mommy still says your schoolwork comes before everything else. And you have to make that, you have that delicate balance. Schoolwork, athletics. Schoolwork is degree, athletics is big time scholarship, big time break, big time money. But they must come together in a seamless way. So now, at some point in time, something's got to give. And when you grow up in poverty, sometimes the safest and easiest way out is, let me focus on my schoolwork, because the possibility of me getting this athletic break, there's so many hurdles that I would have to jump to get this break. It might be easier to finish my schoolwork and get a job in a firm, get a job in a bank, pick up a profession, or do something. No, I'm saying this to say this. If, as part of this new thrust, this new sports policy, this new everything, and I'm not playing politics here, I'm just saying as it is. I don't care which government, I don't care who is minister, I don't care, that's not a business. The bottom line is the state of Grenada has to make a move now to look for these potential superstars and say, hey, you, come. This is where we're going to bring you now. We're going to bring you into an environment where you're going to have to focus on your schoolwork, make sure your grades stay up, make sure you train well, make sure you train hard. Tell mommy, don't worry about food, don't worry about this, don't worry about that. We're going to take care of you. We're going to teach you proper skills, proper etiquette, proper everything, so that when you go on the medal podium, you're going to learn not to put your hands in your pocket. You're going to learn that when you get the medal, don't take it off right away before you leave the sight of the camera. We're going to teach you all these things. And then we're going to teach you how to run and be good, but we're going to do all of that while ensuring that you come out with a bachelor's in business management or something, so that you lift your entire self, your entire family, and by extension, you can contribute to your village to lift them further out of poverty. We have to get to that stage. And I tell you why, if we don't get to that stage, what we will find is that more and more of these good athletes that running good times, that throwing good distances, that leaping, that jumping good heights, by the time they get to Form 5 and they move on to national college, they're going to continue to disappear in the wind, because there's not a system in place to nurture that talent to take it to the next level. So by the time they get to national college, this is where the balance starts to happen now. So it's either schoolwork or the possibility of maybe turning out to be a superstar athlete. That has to change. We have to be able to identify the talent and bring them to a place where mommy and daddy don't have to worry, but the state takes care of them, because ultimately the state benefits more than everybody else after when these people turn in to be international superstars. They wave the Grenadian flag and then Grenada goes on the map. Kirani James is a perfect example. If you want to know the real story of Kirani James, find somebody who is close to him so they can tell you how much his mom had to struggle. Talk to Anderson Peters. You know, a lot of these people run themselves out of poverty, and when not given the opportunity, they run themselves into depression, and there's a whole lot of what ifs, and that has got to change.
Yeah. I want to thank you very much, Jason, for sharing your thoughts, and looking forward probably at a subsequent program we can come back and discuss, more about not just intercall, but we can talk about sports and the coverage of sports because I want to congratulate you on your sojourn in cricket. We have spoken about that before. You know,
Yeah.
And
Well,
even
I've
though
got
it was
cricket coming up. We've got the T10 cricket coming up
right,
in,
right,
yeah,
and that is another one again in terms of the coverage
yeah,
because it's back. The coverage goes all the way back to this, to Asia, South Asia, the India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, a very big
yeah.
audience. They enjoy watching cricket at all levels and wherever it is. So this is more than intercall, as you know, in terms of the viewers. So I want to congratulate you on that, and I'm certain that between now and then you'll be going through your rules book and familiarizing yourself with the
Oh, yeah. Oh,
cricketers
yeah.
and all these other things. Yeah. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you, Max.
Right. Okay then.
Thanks, John.
All right.
All right.
Okay. So that was Jason Skeet, and Jason was one of the commentators on the live. That is the yeah, the live, yeah, the broadcast, the central broadcast. And telling you, there were a lot of comments. I'll get you some of those comments in a while. But Rudian, let me get some. Paula is saying that the product was amazing. I'm happy to have Intercall back. The product was great, although I felt on the last day the intermissions were too long. It could be that there were not events on the final day. Uh, what's your take, Rudian?
No, it's always like that. It tends to have that, and sometimes it does get long. But it's always go back to balance again. Like I said, it's been a few years since they have it. I'm pretty sure they're going to go back in the books and look at how things goes and just make it much better. But it was a bit long. It was a bit lengthy on the last day. But I'm pretty sure they're going to go back in the books and and work it out, and it'll be a better product for next year.
Um, Powers that be must be mindful of the overcrowding. This year, the stretch ticket sales was quite evident. Any emergency on the last day could have been very dangerous. The lady official on the field for the javelin throws, in my opinion, were too close to the finish. Risky, yeah. That is something that we always be mindful of in terms of, yesterday, for example, there was an incident with the boys and girls champ where the athletes were running. An official who basically I think was a starter or a member of the starting group because he had a pistol in his waist, and he was walking on the track. And by the time they called out to him, and he turned around, he bumped into an athlete who was actually coming on to him. The athlete fell. And it's all about the awareness as officials, and especially with the throws, and especially with the javelin and the discus in particular. Not so much the shot put because the shot put is what a shorter distance, but when it comes to the discus, when it comes to the javelin, you have had incidents where people were speared in the back, in the head, in their leg. The discus thrown, someone received a discus in their face many years ago in Tantine. GBSS had it was the heats, and the guy was throwing the discus, and another guy got it plumb on his face. He was hospitalized for a while. So these are things that they have to be mindful of. That's why you have the cage, and you have to the officials who are doing the javelin. They have to be mindful of that. They cannot turn their back when someone is about to throw. They have to keep their eyes on the javelin, on the discus. You see some of them running towards the implement. you know, but you do that when you know what you're doing. You don't just run to it, and because a javelin could be, wavering in the air. All these things are things that you have to be very
No, but
mindful.
and you're totally right. when you're a professional, but even professionals get hurt as well.
Yeah, yeah,
But you have to know it when you're doing it because I've seen it happen. People getting stuck in the head with the javelin and getting
yeah,
stuck in the back with the javelin. And also, so I've seen it happen. Like, and
yeah. And
then
even
when you're in an open sector, it could be a windy day. That javelin could move. That discus could move because a wind could be coming through and just change directions, right? So
yeah, and then we had
yeah,
athletes who used to be walking across from one end to the other,
yeah,
not realizing that the discus or the javelin is, the events are in progress.
yeah.
Clever saying, acquaint our athletes through a few crash courses to allow them to feel comfortable with interviews. Mike should be their friends, not their enemies. And I saw it quite evident a few times during the intercall, and I felt sorry for the athlete, because it wasn't good. And if I was the person, I one of the things, if I had experienced that the first time before going on air with the athlete, I would probably let the athlete know what I'm asking them if they feel comfortable. Um, you know, what I'm asking you, what I expect you to say. I mean, you can stage it for them because hey, they're young. It's the only
No,
way, and some of
that's
them is
serious.
the first time they're experiencing that.
Mm-hmm.
A mic in front
Mm-hmm.
of them, getting the opportunity to speak. So you have to help them, and it's good for you as well. You're not going there and just ask the person, how do you, hey, if you ask me how I'm feeling and I just, when I read, I'm feeling great. That's it.
Yeah.
I am feeling great. So you
But
have
we
to
seen it.
be,
Well, you seen it on the international stage. You seen it on the
yeah,
international. Not only
you have,
in there. You see it on the international stage.
you have to be
They're tired.
smart. You have to
Yeah,
be
they're tired.
smart.
Yeah.
You have to be, thing. So you there, you with the athlete, you let them know you can feel, you know, that hey, this athlete is not comfortable. I will make him or her comfortable. So I'll tell, listen, here's what I will ask you. Here's what I'm expecting you, to say, and because you're helping them as well. This is not Kirani James you're speaking to. This is not an experienced athlete who has been, who has gone through, the trenches.
The
You know,
trenches. Yeah,
so these are some of the things.
definitely.
Yes, these are some of the things that we have to be mindful of. And I don't think it's, and in terms of going forward, the recommendations, in terms of the broadcast and all of that, and even the schools should look at helping some of the athletes. You know your athletes, you know the potential of your athletes, the possibility of some of your athletes getting onto the podium, being interviewed. You have to start getting them into that. Having mock sessions, you know, with them. And the more they do it, is the more they feel comfortable. Look at Arlene Francis when he started in terms of interviews. Arlene can now hold his own on an interview. I can go on to so many of those athletes I started interviewing, and they were a bit shaky at the start, and then now they can sit down and be comfortable when an interview. These are the sort of things that we have to do. Hazel is saying, good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations to all our student athletes on a job well done at Intersecondary Schools Athletics Championships. Um, Paula is saying again, I see some schools were not able to get 1 point. Having set standards may help, but may deter some schools. Yep.
That was
It
my
is
point, right?
a good point. Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
that was my
But
point.
then
Yeah,
again, yeah, that's what we were saying initially in
yeah.
terms of
If there's two things we might focus on. If you want to focus on quality, then you have a standard. If you want to talk about inclusion, meaning getting everybody included, then you have to be mindful of the standard as well, right? So it kind of, like I said, it goes both ways because if you say that every school is required or to have the athletes coming in, then they will bring in who they have, and the athletes may not be of standards and of good quality, right? You might have them coming in a even in a 800, in a 1500 and getting lapped because they want to include them to come in, and then that's not good for the athletes or for the school at the same time. So it goes both ways, but it's a discussion they gotta have.
yeah, yeah. Before I continue with some of the comments I want to make mention before I forget. You know, And I'll put it up first, and then I want to make mention of it. Let me get this out of the way first, because I think it's important that we highlight. Okay, these two guys representing Kingston College to the left, and then we have Edwin Allen to the right. Yeah, so we have Isaiah Patrick, who once attended the St. David's Catholic Secondary School, and then we have um, Dylan, who once attended. He's actually from Pity Martinique, but he once attended the Hillsborough Secondary School. You know, and I want to at least make mention of these guys, both Patrick and Logan. That is Dylan Logan. Isaiah Patrick. Well, let me start with Dylan Logan first of all. Logan won the the gold medal in the class two boys shot put at the Boys and Girls Champs in Jamaica. He represented Edwin Allen. In fact, I should check the discus to see what he did there. But so gold medal for Logan. But Patrick and Patrick basically left off. I mean, sorry, continue from where he left off last year because he was in brilliant form last year, especially in the 110-meter hurdles. And this year, again, he won probably what six or seven of the 10 events. You know, he basically hands down. There was no competition for him really because he won by almost 400 points. He broke the record. Patrick hands off to Isaiah Patrick, St. David's Catholic Secondary School. Again, there have been a lot of discussions about our athletes, whether they go to Jamaica or whatever it is. And this is just one of the many good things we can say about our athletes. Not all may have fallen into that category. I mean, look, we have Jamora Alves, for example, who is now at St. John's University. And, she's the face, basically, of the promotions for Boys and Girls Champs this year. When you look at the promotions, the female athlete that is actually they use in promoting boys and girls this year is Jamora. Again, an athlete from Caracou. So I just want to give some time to highlight and congratulate these athletes. The decathlon with Patrick, and someone asked me whether or not Patrick will be drafted in on the Carifta team. I have the Carifta team somewhere there. I need to check and see what it was like, for the decathlon. But congratulations again, guys. And certainly he has really improved. And I want to pay tribute to those athletes and all the other athletes who are representing the various schools and Grenada at the Boys and Girls Champs. Because, one of the things that I noticed that the commentators do mention that they give kudos in terms of this athlete from Grenada. They don't just say this athlete from Kingston College, but they say Patrick, who is from Grenada, And I think it augurs well for our athletes and our other athletes. And again, it brings the point, Rudian, where I believe that in terms of investment, that's where we have to go in terms of investing in our athletes. I want to see more of our young athletes in competition. Yeah, our elite athletes, yeah. But if I have to do things over again, my focus will be on the young athletes. More competition for these athletes. Now, here's the difference. Intercall finished on Thursday. In truth and in fact, the last real competition for our athletes may be with St. Games. In terms of
Yeah.
local.
Local competition.
In Jamaica, the athletes are competing now. There is a break next weekend for the Carifta Games, right? Yeah, next weekend, Carifta Games. And then I think probably a break after just after Carifta Games. But then they're back into competition again. They have various meets. Some of them they
Yeah.
go on to pen relays.
Yep.
They represented their school pen relays. They go on
Yep.
to there's a meet in Maryland, couple meets in Florida. They participate in. That is the advantage they have over the athletes in Grenada. You
Grenada.
know,
Yeah.
they in competition in season. So we have all the hype about intercall, and that's where it ends.
That's what it
We can
is. Yeah.
we can follow we can follow the athletes in Jamaica and even the Grenadian athletes in Jamaica right through until they get ready to return to Grenada. You know, and that's the thing I believe that we have to look at in terms of developing our young talents, affording them the opportunity, more competition for them. That's where we're supposed to be spending the big dollars. If you understand what I'm saying. And I'm certain that there are folks who will love to see more of our athletes in competition. That's why I
Mm.
suggested, and unfortunately, my good friends didn't buy into it when I was around. The whole idea of the for example, the relay meets, you know, the top the top schools from Grenada, at least four or five of them competing against some schools from Barbados, Trinidad, St. Lucia, St.
Trinidad.
Vincent. It
Yeah.
depends on.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, it's
Uh,
like it's the
yeah. So
continuation of
you
Intercall.
mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, we mentioned that.
Yeah. You
That
mentioned
that
that.
that that,
Yeah.
that was
It's
thinking then, but
a
I think
Caribbean high school championship.
yeah, the Caribbean high school, but that was the turning point, I believe, for what I envisioned for the
Yeah.
invitational. But there are folks who
Man,
were looking at
it's
the
lack of
whole. Yeah,
competition, and that's really what it is. I had four. Our high school here had four indoor season meets indoors, and they haven't even started outdoors yet. I know we do deal with weather wise, but I think they focus too. Sometimes they look at home, they look at the character games, and they say, "Well, we need intercall to be done before character." Then you could just have a character qualifiers,
yeah,
and then extend more meets, and then get intercall. And that way, the athletes get more meets. They're more prepared. They all don't know how to always go to all the meets because there might be different events in all those meets, right?
yeah.
But
Well,
let's continue on.
that's the
Yeah,
thing. Yes,
yeah,
they have because not all the schools, for example, I know they don't always go. But not every weekend they
yeah,
compete. They decide, okay, this weekend we compete here. We may compete next weekend, but next weekend we may be off. Or these
yeah.
are the athletes that may compete this weekend. These are the athletes that may compete the following weekend.
Yes, following
These
weekend,
are
yeah.
all the athletes. Yeah. So these sort of things.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they keep them in competition, and in addition to that, it means that they are providing not just them the competition, but more opportunities for there to be recruited because you're seeing them over a season.
Yeah.
And in the case of Grenada, it's just intercall. I
Yes,
mean,
that's all it is. Yeah.
if I have to choose between an athlete in Jamaica and an athlete in Grenada, I mean, it
I'm gonna
means
go
that
to Jamaica. Yeah,
yeah, or it means that that athlete in Grenada has to be exceptional,
exceptional.
exceptional talent. But then when
Yeah.
I see the athlete in Jamaica over a period of time and I see how he or she has improved in their timings, et cetera, I say, hey, no, this seems to be a better bet.
Yeah.
Let me get some comments there because some of them I'll be going at them blindly, right? Well, here is one. Do the high schools have athletic directors or do the coaches report directly to the principals? Um, that's something some schools may have, some schools may not. Um, you know, um, oh, you were saying something, William?
I say high school may not. Universities, you find directors and so forth.
Yeah. Well,
Schools
high
might
schools,
just have. They don't really have the director. They might have in charge of sports, maybe in charge of gym or something like that. Yeah. Um,
especially in Grenada,
yeah,
you know.
not necessarily. Even out here, we don't have a athletics director.
in
even in
high
a big
school.
country as Canada. In university, yes, we do,
Yeah.
but in high school, you don't have. You just have who is in the person in charge of phys ed. Put it this way, and
Yeah.
they will probably put somebody in charge of track and field, and then somebody in charge of all the other different sports, and that's where you kind of go to. So,
And,
yeah,
and in some cases, maybe just the maybe teachers themselves, eh?
yeah,
Maybe
it is
teachers
teachers.
themselves.
It is teachers. Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes some schools may have the physical education people who are trained, etc.
yeah.
But in some cases, you have an actual
No,
teacher who.
it's actual teacher.
Um,
Yeah.
Martin Alexander, good afternoon to you. Say, let's run the 100 meters on the first day because you're not getting the best time to the 100 meters because the 2 and the 4 are before the 1, and the same persons are running these races. Um, I I'm wondering if they were trying there was a sort of experiment this year in terms of the 1 and the 2 because if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the 1 on the first day? I'm not sure. Um, Martin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if so, if not, then I think you know point is taken, and I'm certain that
They,
the technical people will look into ensuring that our athletes, based on how the system is, that they get maximum rest to compete effectively.
yeah, and that's one of the things too. Like I said, everywhere you go, you have someone different, right? Different athletes, different people. Out here, we always focus on the 100, 400, 1500. It's always like in the same, and then you always have the 200, 800 on that second day, right? Or 2 days later or something like that. But the 200, 800 kind of combine together as one, and the full 100, 400 is the kind of the event that comes in the same day because you don't really find much athletes running a 400 and a 100. You have, a handful, if all of that, maybe not, not as good, but you don't really find that combination. If you more find 1, 2, or you find a full and a 800,
Mhm.
so
All right.
yeah.
Right. Let me go to Michael Chairman. Can anyone speak on the points allocation for team and individual events? I recall Mr. Jeremiah said they're looking to revamp in future games, but yeah, that would be from 2024 go forward, Michael. But from what I can tell you, and based on what I saw, the individual events may have carried well, and that was from a program a few years ago. First, well, they had first to eighth. First in the individual, 12 points. Second, 8. Third, 6. Fourth, 5. Fifth, 4 points. Sixth, 3. Seventh, 2 points. And eighth position, 1 point. Right? And then in the team events now, like the relays, first carried 16 points, which actually is true because I was doing some calculation myself when they provided us with the scores prior to the 4 by 400 meters.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I did that, and yeah, it came up to that. So 16 for first, 12 for second, 8 for third, 6 points fourth, 4 points for fifth, 3 points for sixth, 2 points for seventh, and 1 point for eighth position in the team events. So yes, you correct, Michael, that Mr. Jeremiah did speak about looking at revisiting the whole issue of the points allocation, and hopefully it's something that probably come 2024. Richie Olivier from TNR Communication is saying we are hoping to record the field event and play when there is nothing happening next year. Lincoln, remember you have to balance that with keeping the momentum of the games. Field events are relatively boring to most spectators compared to track. I would say so totally thorough because might be for some, but it's all how it is played out. When you have field events, for example, on the big screen in the stadium, it brings that sort of excitement. You know, the long jump and long and triple jump, for example, Rudy and high jump, for example,
Is
is
it, well, I was
something
about to say that. I was about to
right.
say the
High
the
jump.
the biggest of feel for spectators to zoom on is the high jump
High
more
jump.
than because you could physically see somebody going over the bar or not, and you could hear the
So,
or you hear the
yeah.
loud noise,
So,
right? So yeah,
so it's all about how you present it. And if you
Yeah.
engage the public, the spectators in it, even if they don't like it or they're not accustomed,
To
they
it.
get
Yeah.
it, they get in it. So what they
Yeah.
normally will do is project it onto the big screen.
Yeah.
And then you get the athlete themselves, getting the spectators involved, the clapping, all these sort of things. Whether it's the high jump, the long jump, the triple jump, you get them. Even the javelin, for example, you have them in the big screen. You let, and especially if someone is going after a record, you know, last two throws,
You got to
all
go
these sort
live
of
on
things.
that. You got to go live on
Yeah,
that.
it's
Yeah.
all
When
about
somebody
how,
is very close to a record, that's when you have to go live and get the crowd involved in.
they
Yeah.
always tell you in track and field and in broadcasting track and field, it's all about the presentation.
Yeah.
Before, there was nothing about the projecting on the big screen. Now you have that.
It is.
You
Yeah.
project it on the big screen during the meet. That is the law in I mean, going to the world
Yeah.
champs, for example, I know
Yeah.
that it's at point in time, all attention will be on
On
the
that
field event.
event. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
They put a pause
everyone,
on what's happening. They put a
yeah,
pause on. Yeah.
big major pause,
Yeah. But we
and
see that the Olympics wasn't the
you get
Olympics with
involved.
them two guys in the high jump. It was the Olympics.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep. They
they
did
can
put a
get
pause on everything else.
the
Yeah.
lads going on three
Yeah.
attempts. You,
Yeah.
you miss your first two, and then on the third one you got it, and there goes the excitement again. Even the pole vault sometimes,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, it's all about the presentation. Um, Let me say, kudos to the officiating team, especially the head official. His or her control of the meet, especially the quick decisions on false starts, were commendable. Oh, and Martin is saying GBSS camped in Grenville the year Intercol was held in St. Andrews. Um, says PBC also camped in school. So it comes back to the point we were making, that the schools can start doing their organization and inquiring and, and whether they need support or whatever it is.
Well, there's so many different ways nowadays to
Yeah,
fundraise, and
yeah,
and um and it should make it into something big. Because it's funny you said that, because that was one of the when I was speaking with that one a teacher from the St. Patrick's school. That's one of the things he said. They have to look into either trying to get the St. Patrick's team for the primary school sports to either get a hotel in the city somehow, or just find a camp to camp out. Right? No, they have to get some sort of some sort of
yeah.
things, right? And anything is possible. Nothing is not impossible, right?
Yeah,
So
so let's say
yeah.
those when you say hotel, it might be a bit prohibitive for some of them. So say accommodation. Use the word accommodations, please. Because when they say hotel, they'll be thinking about thousands of dollars, blah blah
And
blah.
it doesn't have to be, because you could have a relationship with a
But
management
here,
team, and then you
here,
can get the
here,
rooms. Yeah,
here's
yeah,
something. Here's something. I always ask, for example, in 2016, when Grenada hosted the Caribbean Games, there were teams that were staying at the hotel built by the Chinese in Woodlands. It's a massive building, right? And I am asking the question whether it's still available, what is the situation with it, and whether they can't use it for that. You know, you can bring in, for example, you can bring in the cooks, your chefs and cook for the athletes, and you could make it
yeah,
into a major um, accommodation area for the athletes from the outer parishes, you know,
yeah,
because I know some of the athletes were um, accommodated at that hotel. Well, at the time it was a hotel. I don't know what is the situation with it now, you know.
yeah.
But it's a massive
It's a
building.
massive place. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, when we went in, for example, the ballroom that they use for the technical meeting, it was a huge ballroom, for example. And then when you go to the rooms, you know, well, something about the Chinese, they always, they do things in big, big things, Basanio says, I would suggest that the organizers of the games take a deeper look at the way the event spread out over the 3 days. For instance, the junior boys had three back-to-back field events on the second day, javelin, discus, and shot put, And the third day, there's so much empty space in the program. Outside of that, there were lots of great performances. Hats off to the athletes and the coaches, officials, and organizers. Thank you, Bas- Basanio. Um,
Yeah, we
but
did discuss that already. That's something that they missed. We did have a discussion on that, and like I said, they're going to go back in the schedule. It is not unusual to be gaps, especially on the last day. It is never unusual. It's not an unusual stuff. We see it in many events, and it's not something unusual. The first 2 days it tends to be more cram, and then the last day tends to have a little bit of gap, and it happens. But we did discuss about the junior boys having back-to-back events, so something I
and
guess they're going to look into, and yeah.
Pele is saying that the convent girls probably can camp together. Have those from the girls from St. Andrew come down to, St. George's and camp with them. If we want to be close on par with the great Jamaican boys and girls champs, we definitely have to make some logistical changes. Yes, it will take a Herculean effort with all stakeholders. Um, Pele says, not Pele, sorry, Toro Bass, GBSS compound should be available to any school for camping next year. We are thinking of taking champions GBSS to the big leagues next year, boys and girls champ in Jamaica. Martin says the issue with the respective school sponsors getting their mileage at the games continue to be an issue. And that's something that they need to work out with the organizers. You know, uh, yeah, it's something that they need to be work out. Davis Adams, who was one of the broadcasters, says TNR Communication must be commended for the investment made in this area of entrepreneurship. Afi George, the quality of the broadcast was top class. Hats off to TR. However, I honestly think the commentators or announcer need to familiarize themselves with some of the athletes, especially the standout ones. We want to know their personal best coming in. And so the live broadcast on a scale of probably 10 was for me 9. That's what Michael Sherman is saying. Wonderful combination of the broadcast team. It was on par with the boys and girls champs in Jamaica. I had the opportunity to listen to the live streaming. Um, Torres saying after GBSS was disqualified, they moved to Plan B in their quest to win the 2023 title. Anything you need to say in relation to the games overall, Silver?
I mean, no, everything was good. Like we say, everything we need to say, and I believe that like they're gonna get to the table and they're gonna fix everything. We're looking forward to something bigger and better next year as we go into 50-year independent of Grenada. I think they're gonna attach something in line with that. It's a significant year for Grenada and Grenadians, and I think they're gonna tap into that for make Intercall something they haven't seen before. For next year and all the changes that we spoke about. I don't see an extra day happening for Intercall. I what I see is just an adjustment of the schedule and how they do it. It's really
Um,
it's hard to
while
see
you're on
that,
that,
but yeah.
while you're on that, I want you to comment on this also. It has to do with Torres saying make the ticket price $20 next year. Give school tickets to sell in advance. And then
Well,
students could also buy tickets from their schools, blah blah blah, and things like that. What do you think about that?
I agree. I had a discussion with a parent um, who didn't like the idea of the amount they're spending coming from the distance they're coming from. And I suggest to her that a good way for the schools to do it next year, the schools sell tickets that attach with transportation. So it's a one package. Um, so the kids don't have to worry about finding bus and transportation when they go down and come back, especially those who live up north. So we did that. So I agree with that, but I agree to see tied down with the school that link into transportation as well, so that the kids know they have some way of getting home, because some of them have to fend on their own, especially if it goes late, um, and then they have to pay so much, and then the bus fare is not cheap for coming from let's say coming from distance, so and then they're looking to have to buy food and stuff. So we always talk about some of the parents in Grenada who's working hard And we are not talking about those who have, Michael. We're not talking about those who's complaining about going to other events and then they complain of spending $15 or complain of spending $50. I'm talking about those parents who really want their kids to be a part of this. And it's so much for them if there was some sort of package with the schools for transportation and tickets. So, that's one package that would have been very good. So I agree with that. But there's something I really talk about it with a parent who their concern was food for this particular student, transportation and ticket all in one was a bit too much for them.
Yeah, and this is another one. Cliff definitely the same. We also have to educate our young athletes on sport protocols and decorum. The young athlete who on two occasions made some showboating gestures at the finishing line must understand that behavior such as this can be very costly. Future scholarships. Scouts will not touch them regardless of talent. Why Kirani James is such an exception. And to be honest with you, I actually have that piece as something I wanted to show, but I had to get permission from Richie first, which I didn't, seek. So I didn't really, because I really wanted to comment on that. Again, as much as the talent, this I don't understand. The coach should have spoken to this athlete the first time saw that.
But Michael,
seriously, there is no need for that showboating.
Yeah. We definitely for sure we're in two different places, but every student out here before they go to the high school championship have to sign a waiver. Their parents have to sign the same waiver. And it doesn't matter if you're 18 or not, your parents still have to sign that waiver. Something 18. And that goes with language and discipline. You swear on the line, you get disqualified. There is no question. There is no second chance. There is no third chance. Your first chance is when you sign the waiver. And you only get two chances, first chance and then second chance, and that's really what it is. So we tell them right away, you take your shot off, doesn't happen. You threw a baton because you're upset. We understand. We get it. We get it. We get the frustration. But we also tell them that we tell the teachers that from day one, that is what it is. They sign up on it. The minute you sign up on it, that means you read it. So that means you should know. And then we have disqualified. We have done it because that also shows not only for that aspect, but for future. Imagine you're like we use in Canada, you're on a Canadian national team and you threw the baton because you're accustomed to it. I'm going to do something. If there is a specific town out here that okay with showboating, they are okay with it. It's very disrespectful the way they do it. Young man running, and when he gets to the finish line or he's in a big lead, he put his pants down and he mooned the crowd. That's on their side. He came into a high school championship and do that. No, they disqualified him one time. No question that. And not only disqualified from the event, he couldn't compete again. It's not the young man's fault because he was never spoke about it in his community, right? They do that out there, and so he come in thinking it's okay to do it there. So it also goes for that, but we have our rules, and that's a no-no. So discipline is a key thing.
Well, there was an incident where Kirani and we were looking at boys and girls champ, for example, on Wednesday, and there was the incident where there was an athlete between Kingston and Calabar, Kingston College, Calabar, and there was one bump into the other, and at the end there was not so much a scuffle, but attempt to, and the finish line people had to hold back who and this, that, the other, and they took decisive action the same evening.
Yep.
The athletes were disqualified and banned from the rest of the championship.
Yeah.
That's how quickly they use that.
Yeah, because they have a standard.
Yeah, and I mean,
Jamaican championship have a standard not only in the quality of the athletes, but the quality of the games. They have a standard that they go by. And the same way that we talk about, they are been many years and people are paying, people from all over Europe, not only in US and Canada, people from Europe and other places that you never heard, people from India, they watch the Jamaican championship, because they know it's a global thing.
Yeah.
And we hope to get there, and we are working to get there as Grenadian. We are not there yet, but we are hoping to get there. But this is global, so they have a standard. So there is no, like I said, you get it's one chance. You messed up, you're done. And that's how it is over there. And I commend them for that. It's unfortunate the athletes will lose that opportunity. I've seen curfew. I've seen curfew with schools that send kids who make it 2 minutes late back from curfew. And that kid was going to be a champion. And the rules are the rules, you
Yeah,
know.
and
So
especially when
it's
they're
as
young,
simple as that. And they're young.
yes,
And like,
by
I've seen it. Basketball, I see they just pick up the phone, they call their parents and they say, hey, time, they come pick up your kid. I've seen it happen. So rules are rules.
Ele is saying, I looked at the broadcast, was free on GBN, and I heard it was also free on GIS. Jamaica Champs pay-per-view, but free on television Jamaica. I'm watching now. By the way, Jason, I was on the broadcast with you 14 years or so ago. And Natalie, yes, congratulations to you and your daughter Aliyah. Yes, yes, congratulations. Um, Quite some comments there. There's one, once you go to TAMCC, that's it because it's considered a college. That's why schools give second years. Um, Lots of comments. Oh, let me see. Hazel is saying, I agree if they don't see the benefits and support it, they give up. Um, Jason, the government will need a mechanism for giving support to athletes. That mechanism is our parish sports council and sports club. I think there's a lot of work for them to do at that level in truth. Um,
Yep.
yeah, that will be a mechanism in truth.
Or
Um,
they decide to have a national team. If you decide to have a national team and identify some people and have a national team and training with them, then that's a difference. But if you want to pick people individually, it's going to be a challenge.
Kyron Baptiste says, excellent point by Jason. Had the opportunity to attend the primary school track and field meet, and to be honest, 90% of the kids that were winning the races or at least medaling were the kids running bare feet or with no spikes.
Yep.
We are working to fix this for next year. I want to congratulate Cleve also, Deputy for also assisting wherever possible. I did some a few years ago, and I've noticed some others are doing likewise. And again, I'm
No,
saying,
I did have a conversation with when I spoke to Mr. Duncan and yeah, as he, Roger Duncan and then I told him of a company that I know of who do have spikes really good price and off season. So we will stay in contact over September, end of August, September time, and then we're gonna work something out and see what we can do to donate some spike for some schools.
yeah. It's a notable idea, but it's part of a national discussion. We debate these things in serious. A few weeks ago, sorry, it was doing the same thing for footballers after Grenada got the 7-1 whipping from the US. What about our young netballers who just came second in regional competition, and our
Hmm.
swimmers and basketball players and others? And also, I want to make mention of the special education students who participated in Intercall.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I thought it was a good gesture. It's a good initiative, and if only we can get more of them
Hmm.
competing, And something I was told, in fact, Ray Roberts said that to me that um, in terms of one of the athletes, right? Um, which I thought was very interesting because he said that and that athlete name is Kellen Phillip from the Spice Center Special Education School, only 15 years. He lives in Concord, right? And Ray was telling me that Ray Roberts was telling me that his grandmother said that all over his room, right, are pictures of Kirani James. She says he loves Kirani. The other girl who was competing and won a medal is from Grenville. But however, the challenge, as Ray was saying, is that society doesn't take them seriously.
Nope.
Even the Ministry of Sports coaches visit, not even, sorry, the Ministry of Sport coaches visit their schools. However, he wants to give some credit to Paul Phillip, who he said has been trying his best working with them, but again, his hands are filled. But and that's the problem. We have the talents, and one of the things that he told me too was that um, he did 12.70 seconds without training. They ran at the stadium for the first time. The girl has 2 sessions at the stadium, 2 sessions at the stadium, lasting just about an hour prior to competing at the stadium. Again, we have the talent. You know, these are the things that we have to look at. These are the things that we have to work at. Guys, so many comments. I mean, I want to thank all of those folks for chiming in. Um, with their comments. Um, the GOC had weekend was help them improve. Whoa, yeah, lots of comments there. If you have the time, go on and you'll be able to see the comments on the page. And if you want to continue the discussion, please do. But wow, let me see one here. The third leg guy in the final race for GBS has reminded me of Michael Bascom in the heat representing Maguire Tan team. The only thing the fire truck was not present at this occasion. Yeah, Chenny. Chenny always trying to low blow on me. But that's it. I will get back at him. I'll get back at you, Chenny. Don't worry. Um, Thank you, Michael, for highlighting these athletes from Karaku who are doing well, including the high jumper from PD Martinic. Of course, all our Grenadian athletes must be given the necessary promotion and support. Yes, I agree on that. Um, some events like long jumps, some junior boys finished late on the first day. The athletes were jumping, and all the spectators had already left the stadium. That's what we were talking about, Rudy, and you know, and I'm certain that the
Yeah.
organizers will be looking at that in ensuring that going forward that they feature or they put the event in such a way that you can't have kids jumping
Something. Yeah.
at six
Uh,
o'clock,
uh,
7 o'clock, and all the spectators are
and
going
and
around.
I
Yeah,
and I always take a mind to that because, like I said, I'm out in the high school championship out here. Jumps is my category, so I'm in charge of all the jumps: long, high jump, pole vault, and triple jump. So I try to make it highlight, especially with the senior event. I put it at a prime time when we know everybody's in the stadium. But it is something like if it goes late, people do leave the stadium. So it it happens. I know we're looking at Grenada and it happens other places too. But we'll try to make it worthwhile. We have to revamp the schedule that doesn't conflict with others. With them, especially jumpers do other events, especially 100 and 200. So we have to look at that as well. But we try our best to kind of make it something where the people don't leave. That's why getting the cameras on them is always key. It's something that we do a lot. Try to get the cameras on the announcers. We have a field announcers that only focus on the field events, and that is good. Also, that helpful to get in the crowd, involved what's happening. So it is something that happens. But like I said, they're going to revamp the schedule. They're going to look at it. They're going to go back and see the little
yeah.
things, and it will be better. It will be
They,
better.
they left with no
Yeah,
other choice. I think
yeah,
coming out of Intercall 2023, um, the organizers, the technical people, the various stakeholders, they have to get down and start
yeah,
looking at things. And also, I think it's also good for even the organizers at the primary school level because to look and see what are some of the things that they can do to better the product at the primary
better
school
than
level. Because remember,
yeah.
a lot of the athletes are the primary
Coming
school
from primary school.
is a feeder program for the
Yeah,
secondary school,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's important for them to even organize at that level,
Hmm.
and even I mean, I will want to see the primary school championships at the level of the intercall in terms of even the coverage, you know. I
Yeah.
mean,
Because
but
and we say that because Michael, that's what we have in Grenada.
but
Believe it
but
or not, like this is,
yeah,
I mean, when we talk about track and field and other sport, track and field, like there's when we talk about Jamaica, track and field is Jamaica. Yes, they have the other sport, but track and field is Jamaica. So that become the forefront in any other sport. So
and
they
by the way,
make it the
not
prime. Yeah,
not just track and field, but even at the school level, because
at the school
remember,
level. Yeah,
the people that we are seeing there, I'm seeing at the stadium. No, it's Saturday afternoon in Jamaica. If they have an international meet, you don't see that crowd there.
No,
I'm telling
but
you,
but
don't see
but
that
but
progress.
who was
Well,
there yesterday? Who was there yesterday in Jamaica? The Prime
yeah,
Minister. The
yeah.
Prime Minister was in there in trap hands.
Well,
He was one of them.
not
You
just
just
not just yesterday. He was there
yeah,
and
no, no. I'm just saying. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
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 yeah, that's the sort of thing. That's how they look
yeah.
at, especially at that level, because they know it's the future.
But
They
but
know
but
what is going to Jamaica, and
and
that's the
let's go
mentality.
back.
That's the mentality
That's
we
the
need to.
mentality of their thinking. But
Yeah,
let's go back to when we speak to the principals of Jamaica. When we had a conversation with them, they don't get funding from the government. The same prime minister, the same government who was in the stands, they don't get funding from them for the same sport that they come and support. So the love of the sport they come to support the school and they come to be prideful for that, but only and also support the athletes because that's how Jamaica really get their name besides the reggae and everything that they have in sports. That's how they get on the map. So that's what we have to look into that as well.
Um, Good afternoon, Michael. You may have missed the start of the program when we had John L. Yes, he spoke about the hurdles. So that's something that they will have come next year. Once they have participants, it was done before, but I will see it in national champs. Kelon, the beep coverage I have seen in Intercall, the equipment used, instant replay, drone usage, as well as commentary was of a very high standard. Congratulations to all who contributed. Yes, the drone shots were very, very. I didn't get permission to use it, but I thought it was, it was out of this
It
world.
was
Previous
good. It
years,
was it was it was really good. Yeah,
drone
yeah.
shot was magnificent. I thought that was a steal. Davis is saying, to be honest, as it relates to ticket price, it would be good for the organizers to consider the price to enter on the first 2 days. Based on economic situation for families, it might be better to charge a minimal price, maybe of $5 for the stands for students on those days. Consider a parent have 2 or 3 students attending secondary school, which is not abnormal. On the third day, resort to market prices for the various stands, something that they can take into consideration. Um, One of the things I want to advocate for, and I have advocated for even when I was involved in the Invitational, although I don't know why people don't like, transparency. I've advocated for it then, even though there were folks who are against it, but I'm advocating for it here that the organizers of the intercall games, one of the things that they can do is at the end of the games, have and do some sort of, well, they must find a way to put their accounts, make it public, you know, bring in Panel Cofoster, whoever it is. Um, I know, for example, when, well, Chenny can bail me out on that as president of the GFA. They don't have to, but they do make it public. If you want to find it, you can find, it. And I think that's something that the organizers of the games need to do, you know, and they can consider doing probably from this year. Make it available. I mean, there shouldn't be anything to hide, you know. And I think you bring more trust, you bring more confidence into the minds of the people as it relates to that. Because the truth and in fact, you mentioned that you operating at a deficit, if you understand what I'm saying. We may be thinking that
Uh-huh.
you're making profits, but you may be operating at a deficit in truth and in fact. We don't know. But you can bring that
And
to the
and it,
table, and I think it
and it
needs
is
to
a good point. Roger Duncan and I had a discussion after the primary school sports that I'm not supposed to I'm not qualified to mention, but he mentioned something that if it is public, if it is out there in public, the public will see that there is some faults and in terms of how they treat in certain entity.
yeah, yeah. I think
And if it's out there, literally the public will say, "Whoa, that shouldn't happen,"
yeah,
and
but,
yeah,
but, but
yeah,
yeah, it brings some level of transparency, and
yeah,
you may be able to negate the criticisms and all these sort of things. I'm not
yeah,
saying that you know you're making profits. I'm not saying that you're operating at a deficit. You may know it. I'm saying when I say you as the organizers, but it
Yeah.
may good set a standard that in the future people will understand that even
But
though
but at
they're
the same time,
even though,
and at the same time, Michael, things have to be paid for. Things have to be paid for. Officials that
oh no,
some officials have to be paid
hey,
for. Like
I'm not
it's not they're not coming in for free. Like they have things
listen,
have to be paid for.
listen.
Yeah.
I am not saying no because, for example, let me give you an example, and I'm not gonna the rights that a station paid, the money they paid for the rights, right, for the games that they paid to TR Communications for the games was less than, listen to me, less than the cost of one of the cameras that TR Communications bought.
Yeah.
Just one camera, because it was a broadcast quality camera.
Mm.
It was less than. So basically, even the broadcast rights that station paid for was almost like I was a giveaway because
Giveaway.
yeah, because it could not even cover the cost of the camera. People don't
Yeah.
understand. They just see all the games and it should be free
The games and it should be free and it should be this, it should be that. Yeah.
and sponsors should do this and the organizers should get sponsors. But I mean, if I am certain if TNR Communications have to put a dollar figure to the actual coverage of the broadcast of the games in terms of the equipment he had us to acquire just for that and for the graphics, that is the CG, and and all the people that were involved behind the scenes, not the Jason Skeet and
Yeah.
Wesley
Yeah.
Smith,
Yeah.
behind
Yeah.
the scenes,
Yeah. In the
the
sense.
man, the people that have to be putting up the graphics, getting the scores
Yeah.
in, all these things, getting
Yeah.
the lines out, the cameras all around the field, the cables. I mean, you know, if he has to put up a dollar figure to that, I don't think sponsors will be able to, you know, to to be able to cover that.
They
You
will
know,
say people will start saying the cost for the meat is too cheap.
mm. Yeah. There's one other thing. Well, we spoke about the Chinese hotel. Um, somebody's telling me here that it I have to laugh because it's how they said it. That hotel full of Chinese working on the airport. You know, but that is what I was talking about. So probably when they finish, it's something that can be used in the future. They can fix it up and use it for these sort of things. Even when our national teams, whether it's football, well, not so much football because I know football had their own they, at their headquarters, they can accommodate their teams. But whether it's the cricket team, and something the government probably can acquire, I don't know, and use for these sort of things when national teams are preparing to travel, like the character team, for example, before they go off, they can camp together, a basketball team, a cricket team, you know, and things like that. Something, and I thought that can also be used by our athletes come 2024 in
Yeah.
preparation, especially the athletes in the outer parishes, get the schools, get them organized and things like that. So, there was something else I saw Chenny had posted, that Chenny Joseph had posted um, regarding a suggestion he made, which I thought is something they may want to look at since and that could be our final point we may want to wrap on. Um, since the quality of the broadcast has improved so much that we may want to start looking at ensuring that not just the pay-per-view, but that it gets a wider audience, global audience. Yes, everyone wants to see. I remember the last year I went to Boys and Girls Champ. They had reporters from CBS Sports, NBC Sports, ESPN, you know, um, not being Sports, by Al Jazeera Network, their sports. They were actually covering Boys and Girls Champ. That's
Yeah.
the sort of
Yeah.
interest. That's
Yeah.
the sort of interest that they have in the Jamaican. Now we have
So I'm
So
telling you.
many, so many Caribbean athletes participating, and then they have athletes as you heard the chairman of the Boys and Girls Champ Keith Wellington was saying on our program when we spoke to him a few weeks ago. They have athletes from as far away as Africa,
As Africa, yeah.
Africa, England,
Mm-hmm.
Australia. You know,
Yep.
next thing you may hear, probably the Chinese and the Japanese want to come and start running in the Caribbean. You know, so we I am saying that, and I want to agree with Chenny, whichever way they want to look at that, we may have to look at ensuring that probably, or not just so ensuring, but engaging, you know, um, international broadcasters to probably take our feed, see how we can see that, whether it's Sportsmax, whether it's ESPN or whoever it is. This is something a conversation that needs to have. Few comments before we wrap up here. Um, I would love to see the record breakers get something extra like account vouchers for $100 from the bank to set an account
Mm,
someday. Um, well, you can say vouchers. You don't necessarily have to say $100. It depends. Um,
yeah.
as I said a few years ago, I recall it was something that then Scotiabank was offering to. I'm not sure was record breakers, but I know they were offering them the accounts. I don't know how much they were putting in it. But it was a good gesture in getting those athletes to save or saving accounts. By the way, saving accounts. Hazel is saying, I do believe the banks support most outstanding athletes. If I'm not mistaken, they open bank accounts and give some money. Don't quote me on that, but I think this is something they do. Yeah, well, yeah, I recall that a couple of years ago. That was the case. And believe it or not, many athletes have been spotted by some coaches at the USA and already contacted me to make a pitch at our athletes. Yeah, right, Jenny, that's true. And I saw your comment there on one of it, a communication you have had um, about scouting for Grenada. Um, and they want to get in touch with you, and I hope probably you can get in touch with some of the schools or the athletes. Okay, and that is they're speaking about Isaiah Patrick, for example, is one of those that they express an interest in. So it seems as if and it all shows you the power of a lot of things. Here we have um, social media, how it's been used. Chenny and I have been promoting and posting a lot about Isaiah. In fact, I had a caption saying, "Keep an eye on this guy. Keep an eye on him." You know, and there he went because I knew what he's capable of doing. I analyzed the competition. I looked at his strength. I looked at where he was at the competition at the time, knowing that he had conquered what were then his weakest events and his best yet to come. So there was no way he has to get injured. My only concern, and I told Kirani that when we looked at him, because we were looking at him on the first day, his final event was the 400 meters. Wasn't his strong event. And he walked away limping. And I told Kirani, I remember saying, Kirani, I hope it's just a little cramp. And after five events, you know what happens, the cramping and all of that. So once he gets back to the camp and they do the necessary, the icing and and the massaging and what have you, he should be good for the second and final day. And there was the fire. But yeah, I'm happy to see that there are folks who have shown an interest. And Chenny, I want to thank you in advance for making that link. You know, because sometimes we just look at criticizing. And that's why as I was telling Jason, I went at a lot of folks because I don't usually do that. I read a lot, I post a lot in terms of highlighting, but sometimes when I see things and I reach to the point where I think, hey, I've had enough, and I think someone has to set the record straight. And I thought over the last 3 days of Intercall was one of those days because I saw a lot of things from people, and and I know it was garbage. outright garbage. No, I'm
Yeah.
serious about it. Yeah, when I looked at it, outright. And Rulian, we have been on that for year in, year out, just talking sports. We
Yeah.
have been following our sportsmen and sportswomen. So when I see the things that some of these people are posting, and I know it's not true, I have to
Yeah.
challenge them.
Definitely. No, you have
Yeah, I
to.
have
You
to
have to.
challenge them. And
Yeah.
that's why I went at some of them. I said, no, it is, well, I didn't say garbage, but I can tell you now, it was garbage. It was foolishness on the part, you know.
Yeah.
And for some, I said, if you come and you post that on my timeline, I have the authority to delete it
Yeah.
because I know I don't mind criticism, but when you put in what is utter garbage, utter
Garbage.
false,
No, no, no. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
I made no apologies for that, and
Yeah.
this is what I did. Um,
So true.
so I want to thank you once again, Julian.
Definitely. Thank you for having me on
Actually,
once
actually
more.
went to 2.5 hours of,
Yeah.
and I want to thank all those who made this very enjoyable program discussing.
Yeah.
One thing though, next weekend, God's willing, Carifta Games, we'll take a break. We'll let the focus be on our athletes. We'll support
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
athletes
Support
wherever
our
you are.
athletes. Yeah.
Support our athletes. This time it's not schools we supported. We supported we supported
Grenada.
and we supported track and field, right? So whether it's St. David Catholic, whether it's CAS, whether it's GBSS, CBC, please let's support our athletes. So our focus on the program will be on that. By the way, the sports minister for Trinidad and Tobago. Oh man, she is. Well, actually, she's in Jamaica, and we have been communicating, and she will be on our program sometime. It's just a matter of
Yep.
fitting to that. She has a lot to
Schedule.
talk
Yeah.
about. She's actually in Jamaica. She's on a study tour there. In fact, that is their second visit to Jamaica because they were there a few weeks ago. But she is there on the invitation, looking at the meet and things like that. So, and we'll be chatting with her
Sometime
um,
soon.
sometime soon. And then we hope to have got the Prime Minister back again. He has given that commitment that you will be back on the program to talk sports. We want to have him back. Just a matter of the timing to talk about where we are now. Um,
Yep.
and in light of 1 year in his administration, we want to talk about sports at that
Yep.
level. Okay. So, folks, thank you very much for making the program out
Thanks
again.
for having me on, my man.
I
We'll
wish
see
you
you
all the
again
best,
soon.
and I wish you all the
Yep.
best. Thank you very much. Yeah, Ruben. All right. So that's Rudian in Toronto. I want to thank him for being on the program 2.5 hours. Quite a lot we have to talk about. Quite a lot we spoke about. Oh, my voice. Yes, I need to go and get a little rest, even though I have to prepare for, you know, a 10-hour shift. you know, but hopefully I'll be able to survive. And by the way, it's our last program here in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm saying goodbye to Phoenix for now. I don't know if I'll be back soon, but should be hopefully our next program, hopefully maybe back in New York or somewhere else. But this is our last program here in Phoenix, Arizona. I want to say thank you also to my homeboy Kirani for the time we spent together. You know, yeah, we had some good time talking. A lot of trash talking though, yeah, and things like that. So always a pleasure, being around our guys, whether it's Kirani, whether it's Rondell, others, chatting with them, off camera, getting to know a lot about these guys and things like that. So always. Oh yes. So it has been 2 days, 3 days of competition, boys and yeah, boys and girls jam going on now. Sorry, intercall. And just to by way of information, just to let you know, in the point standing, okay. Well, I have it posted on my Facebook page, and we know that St. David's Catholic Secondary School won the girls category hands off. in fact, by more than 100 points over the Anakin High School second place. 335 points to St. David's Catholic Secondary School, to 221.5 points to Anakin High School. Then we had St. Joseph Convent, St. George's, and 183. St. Joseph Convent, Grenville, they were 142.5, 183.5, sorry, St. Joseph Convent, St. George's. SAS, the St. Andrew's Anakin Secondary School, 130.5 points. And then we had the Boca Secondary School on 100.5 points, in terms of top positions. At one point in time, I thought the Happy Secondary School looked at if they would have get into the top 5. And I'm seeing very good talents, and one of the things that I think that came out of Intercall 2023 was so many athletes coming out of the various schools, whether it was the Boca Secondary School, the Happy Secondary School, the PBC. There were some brilliance. Sometimes we only look at the GBSS and SAS, St. David and Anakin High School. But when you look at even Westmoreland Secondary School, barring some disqualifications, etc., all-round performances. Kudos to those schools. Kudos to those athletes. And again, I'm saying we have to continue to invest in our young talents. I am certain there are folks who don't mind another intercall this year, what you call an intercall, athletes or junior athletes in competition. I'm certain they don't mind that. But we have to get that investment in our young athletes. We have to give them that sort of competition. And that's why I'm saying the vision was to ensure that we pivot what was invitational into, for the first year or two, it was a big splash because we wanted to get the attention, the reopening of the Kirani James Athletic Stadium, blah, blah. But the intention was to move towards our young talents and give them that level of competition at the junior level, at the Caribbean level, at the regional level. Make them compete against their regional peers. Not every one of them, by the way, can go on and represent Grenada at the Caribbean Games. But the intention was to provide that opportunity for them to compete. So you were not paying the thousands of dollars, continue paying the thousands of dollars that way, but you were investing into competition for them. There's a cost factor, but nothing compared to what, at that level. This is the way we have to go to ensure that our young talents are developed. And bear in mind that we lose so many of them because they go into the TAMCC, there isn't a structured program. And if they're not in a club, then they fall flat. And even if they're in a club, they just compete at probably the national champs. But there's no level of competition for them. So we have to have these sort of investments, probably in the Grenada Athletic Association, more funding towards the Athletic Association so they can put on these sort of meets for our local athletes to compete. Seeing them at the club level, seeing them at the school level, Yeah. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for being part of the program. And I want to thank you once again and look forward to your company in future programs. I want to apologize for my voice. There was a lot of talking. I'm hoping to take care of it, though. But I want to thank you and look forward to your involvement, your continued support for sport. That's important. Continued support for sport in whichever way possible. Don't fall on the wayside by some of those folks who just make noise when it's a big football game, when it's intercall, and then after that, blam, forget that. We want to continue supporting our sportsmen and women. We want to continue supporting whether it's the footballers, the cricketers. By the way, I want to say good luck to our cricketers, our policemen who are participating in the regional T20 tournament, the regional police T20 tournament in Barbados. I also want to congratulate our young netballers. The youth finished second in the Jean-Pierre Caribbean Youth Netball Tournament in Dominica. And they did exceptionally well in the shooting, for example. In the shooting, Well, one of the shooters was the ace shooter, finished top. Grenada was among the most disciplined team, and they won a couple of prizes as well. So we have to continue supporting our young talents at whatever level. Or basketballers, for example, young basketballers. Nice to see basketball again, and volleyball, new executive, new vibrancy, new programs, Yeah, that's the way we have to go, and we have to continue supporting. And in whichever way you can support, please do so. It does not necessarily have means financial, you know, but the encouragement. Sometimes the social media posting can help and boost, the morale and things like that. So, and the awareness. I don't know all that's taking place in sports. I try to follow as much as possible. You know, there are lots of things that happening, even if at your community level. You can start using your space to promote our young talents, identifying, bringing to the attention. You know, by way of that, you may probably get support. You can't just say, "Hey, yeah, that athlete there, they're not getting no support," and blah 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 and things like that. If nobody knows about it, do your part, please. Thank you very much once again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And all those, whether it's Michael, Chenny, and I'm talking about Michael Lambert, Michael Sherman, Hazel, Gordon, Cleve, Toro, Roger, Kellon, Theo. I mean, I'm just going by, the names who I can recall. Hey, Patricia Noel, thank you very much. And I'm glad to see that you continuing with the netball and volleyball in the big parish. That's the way to go. And there are a lot of folks who have been in the trenches, in the trenches over the years, not recognized, and some of them don't really want to be recognized. They're just doing what they're doing for the love. They're not being paid, by the way, to do it, and they're not complaining, and they just continue to do it, even despite the challenges. I want to thank you, Patricia, for especially with the volleyball and the netball in the big parish. Thank you very much, and for all those who are continuing to make that effort. Oh, there's one other thing. Wilbur Thomas, I want to thank you. You may not be listening, but I want to thank you for your investment in table tennis, for example, right? That's, just like Claire, who has been making his contribution somewhere or the other, I want to thank you for that sort of contribution. Um, and finally, I want to thank one person in particular who really stood out in assisting the media, well, including myself at the time. I don't consider myself media per se, but somehow I was able to get and share information. Jazzes Sylvester. And Jazzle, I want to thank you for that effort. Again, not being paid, a volunteer, but you were on the ball, providing us with up-to-date results, up-to-date information, except the day that you didn't make it. And then I asked Mr. Clouden how he can assist, and then, balls were turning, and things like that. So, but then on the final day, all the results, up-to-date results, things like that. So, and I know your capability. I know your potential. I want to thank you for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. And hope to see you come, not, as I said, not next Saturday, but the following Saturday, which is the 15th of April, because next Saturday we'll be supporting all our athletes at the Carifta Games, the Junior Carifta Games in the Bahamas. So come the 15th of April, hopefully, we'll have our next program. Until then, I want to thank you and do enjoy yourself. Do have a pleasant